Is that live? Cool. What's up, everybody? Hi, everybody. Welcome back to the Bridge the Gap. We are so excited to be back again on this Saturday here. Shout out end of the week for helping us make this all freaking real. Shout out to co-host Flacco Bayo, who you don't see, but he's there. He's going to talk for sure. And most importantly, shout out our guest tonight, BREEZ EVAHFLOWIN. My name is Holden Stefan Roy. And basically, what we do here at Bridge the Gap, I'll explain the concept, is we have people like you who are knowledgeable and know a lot of things because you've lived a lot of life and are able to share such knowledge nuggets with us, the peoples. And then you have me who knows a lot less things and is sincerely curious. And effectively, what we do is we walk through your life story and we learn a bunch of stuff. And then I'll learn something talking to the cats from New York City. Y'all do this thing in the middle of your sentences where you go, nah, I mean, right? And that's a real thing that a lot of people do. But here's the thing, yo, I don't
Yeah.
know what y'all mean in most cases because I'm from Montreal, Quebec, and I never even been to New York City one time. So what we do is we walk through your story, and in a sense, we're kind of like explaining to the rest of the world. Like we got this lady from Norway who watches this stuff and all sorts of things. So as we go through your life, we get
Yeah.
to also explain a lot of little hidden gems of hip hop and stuff, culturally speaking, from back in the day times to the today times that most of us just can't know because we're not actually there. So, with that, it really is a pleasure to have you here with us. I heard some stuff from back in the day. I heard some stuff from you from today. You are a sincerely talented MC with a crazy, crazy catalog of interesting stuff out there. So, with that, thank you for being here with us today. And if it's all right with you, I can ask you my token first question that I like to start this off with.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, so it's a bit of a story, and it'll all make sense at the end.
All
So
right.
my girlfriend is washing the dishes, and she's listening to that Black Eyed Peas song, the "I Got a Feeling," ooh, and whatever. She's dancing around and she's washing the dishes, and this is kind of recent, right? And I'm like, yo, that's some like she's doing chores, and I'm like thinking, yo, I remember when we were in the club and everybody was dancing around in circles. We were all turned up, drunk as fuck, 2 a.m., listening to the "I Got a Feeling," same track. But now it's chores music, which made me had this realization that all this stuff that people are turning up to today, all this fun music, it's just going to become chores music one day, or exercise music, or pick a different vibe for the music as time goes on. The era and place of how the music fits into people's life changes with them because you still love that shit. But that with that got me thinking about my youth a little bit, and it made me realize that when it comes to like a musical journey, you don't really like start with like your preferences. It's not like when you're a teenager or 12. It's not a Stretch and Bobbito. It's none of that stuff. It's like earlier. Like for me, it's like being 5 and my mom is listening to shitty disco tapes that she found at the garage thing where they did the bad versions of disco songs, or like, a bunch of other stuff like that. Or my dad had tapes, and it was always tapes, right, of Zeppelin, or we would have the radio playing crappy techno. I mean, to me it was crappy at the time. Now I kind of fuck with it, but like techno at 2 in the morning on the night radios and stuff. So it was all these vibes and stuff in the car. I remember Krista Berg, that was a big one. And so all these different things. But that's the stuff that honestly I was forced to listen to. And if I think about my musical journey, that's the stuff where it really starts. So my
Mm-hmm.
curiosity is for you, Mr. BREEZ EVAHFLOWIN. What is the sounds of like your super youth before you had control over the sounds in your life? What were you listening to as a young one?
Um. Wow. Yeah, and that's the first time I've ever been asked that. And
Thank you.
yeah, quite a few interviews. Yeah. Um. And as you were talking, and as you brought up the memories of your mom, like I started like getting back, and I'm thinking about the seventh floor apartment on Broadway and 101st Street is where I grew up. My mom was Brazilian. She was a single mother, raising me and my sister. She would always put on samba records every day, all day. And so the house would always be jumping with samba music playing in the background. And then as my sister, who was 4 years older than me, like she laid the groundwork by introducing me to disco. Like I grew up in the 70s. I was born December 18th, 1970. And so throughout the 70s, as I got older, my older sister would buy records. And we had this this all-in-one cabinet. And older people would remember these things because the TV was in the middle and you would open it with like a little screen. Okay, Flacco not.
I know what that is too, though. I can picture it.
Yes, that thing. Um, so if you've ever seen it before, the TV's in the middle and it's this big tube TV, right? And then on top would be a record player, and there'd be another like reveal drawer. Like furniture back in the days was no joke. Like it was all purpose. So there was a record player inside of it, and then in there, right next to it, we'd have the stack of records. And so my sister would have the disco records, and my mom would be rocking the samba. And then I bought the hip hop into the house as a little boy, and that was me listening to the radio late at night, um, once or twice a week eventually. And I had a tape recorder, one of those big clunky tape recorders, and I would push it up against the speaker and have the volume like just loud enough for it to pick up the hip hop shows that were playing back in the days. And then I would rock out to those tapes starting at like the age of 9. And so that's how it all started for me.
So yo, that's an amazing answer. Cause yo, for us, it's like unfathomable, honestly, in a way, right? Like I have a version of sitting there with bad tech doing that, but like first of all, we're talking about the 70s. Like we're talking about fresh disco records, right? Like, what's it like? What part of New York are you from? I know you
Um,
said street names, but that meant nothing to me when you said it before.
no worries, yo, my bad. Yeah, and you're right. This is global. So Broadway and 101st is in Manhattan, and that was
Okay.
Broadway is Broadway. Broadway runs from Washington Heights all the way down to Lower
Like the real
Manhattan,
the Broadway.
the Broadway. And so I was up on the higher end of Broadway on 101st, and that was the Upper West Side of Manhattan. Um,
Boom.
yeah,
Boom.
it's
This is a beautiful
far.
thing. This is a conversation that I have with my friends all the time. You live on the cusp, right? 100th Street to like 110. Is that, is it like, I have this argument with my other New Yorker friends, right? And I feel like only uptown people or people who pay attention to the map really understand, which is
Yeah.
like those 10 blocks, they still consider it sometimes Spanish Harlem or Harlem, depending on
Hmm.
what side of the park you're on. And I'm just like, no, that's Upper West Side. If you look on the
Yeah.
map, that's the name of the neighborhood. Harlem finishes at 110th Street. So everything under there is Upper West Side, which is like a pretty affluential neighborhood now, right?
Yeah, it is. Oh yeah, we got bought out long time ago. Like back in the 80s, we got bought out of that neighborhood because we had moved from there to 102nd in Central Park. And even over there, it was still on the border because we was right up the block from Douglas Projects. And back in those days, like when, crack era, like you would hear machine gun fire down the block. Like that's how it was living on Central Park West.
Wow.
And so now that's unheard of. Like you can't go anywhere near the park.
Yeah, no,
And
now that's unheard
yeah,
of. Now that's
yeah,
like what I'm literally gonna tell Holden, like, yo, when he comes, because he's coming to New York and I'm gonna tour guide him, right? And I'm just
yeah.
like, that's totally an area that I'd take him to. And he's hearing what you're saying now, and he's probably like, hey, don't take me to where the machine
Oh,
guns are clapping.
I'm not, no, no, for real. Like I'm sitting there going,
You're not gonna,
yeah, but
it's nothing like that.
gentrification did happen, right?
Yeah, no, it's nothing
I'm
like
not-
that. It's incredibly beautiful. It's a beautiful neighborhood
yeah,
now.
I know, but like also he said he was the year he was born, and I do have a decent understanding of a little bit of the
Mhm.
history of the era and how certain things were a lot more different then than they are now. Plus, I want to go fucking anywhere without somebody from the city holding my hand. I'm not going to be real with you. Like that's just the kind of person I am. I want to go to a place like New York City and have people from New York City show me New York City. I don't want to go to New York City and
Yeah.
Google. That's me. Also, my girlfriend compliments your use of the reusable water bottle because that's really cool. Sometimes people use plastic water bottles, sometimes they use reusable ones, and that's really dope of you.
Man, I'm just trying to stay conscious of it. I had a lot of time to just sit down and think, right? As we all have. So definitely try to be more conscious of the intake and just hydrate more. So I got to try to keep this near me as much as possible.
That's really cool, though. I like that. That's health shit. Um, no, it's important. I know I
It
say it
is,
like
man.
that, but it's like real
Yeah,
important stuff.
Oh,
helps
dude,
for the
trust me.
earth too, yo. Like there's just little things
Yeah,
that we can do, and something
yeah,
like that is definitely one of those things. Changing your not using those soaps with the little beads in them. These are just little things that is just
yeah.
a simple adjustment that if it can help the environment even a little bit, it's a worthwhile like thing to do. So I'm
Facts.
with you,
Absolutely.
Breeze.
Yeah.
Um, Yeah, so let's go back to your youth though, because I mean, for you, it might not be like interesting to sit there and think about what it's like to be seven in these times. For me, it's super interesting to think about what it's like for you to be seven in these times. Let's say, like, because like, are you like in a place where there's all these parties and stuff happening all around you? Like, I don't know anything about the Upper East Side in the '70s.
It,
Like, you can,
yeah,
like, it's so cool.
it's more the cultural thing, right? Like I was always around parties because my mom was part of the Brazilian scene in New York, and it was always all about the house parties. People would get together at different houses. We would host parties at our house. I remember when I got a little older, I would try to sneak some cachaça from my mom's cabinet, just so I can feel a little burn. Um, so there was always a party, and I remember that there was the kids' room at the party, and so all the adults would be in the other room. We'd be in that kids' room, um, and we just falling asleep in cabs on the way home. So mom definitely had a good time, and it's crazy too. And I think about those days, like all the secondhand smoke in the house. Like nobody thought about any of that stuff. Like there was ashtrays on the buses. Um, it was loose, um, and probably led to some of my bad habits later on. But that's all part of the story, right?
Oh, but that's actually an important part of the story, right?
Yeah,
You
man.
get exposed to something in an environment, it develops into a bad habit. Maybe today people might question rules and why things exist, right? So
Mhm.
as knowledge nuggets to understand and to acknowledge that it had an impact on you, like that's mad self-aware. I commend that. I don't think like any part of anyone's story is bad. You're an incredible person. I heard all of the music you dropped this year. There's not a single bar that you put out that was not wisdom filled or proactive or for your community and all these things. So if along the way there might be bad habits, that's just part of the humanization of you as you get to this amazing place in life that you're at today.
Appreciate that, man.
It's the truth though. That's why it's like always good to talk about the honestest stuff proper, you know?
Absolutely.
So
I
like
want to
I
hear
know
more about this growing up with the because I was unaware that you were Brazilian, and that's super interesting to me because I like my mother's Nicaraguan, my father's Puerto Rican, and
Hmm.
they grew up like I grew up hearing a lot of bomba in my house, and I didn't realize until recently getting a little bit more in touch with my like what my parents would play like right growing up. I would always
Yeah.
have like this very like I don't want to listen to what my parents listen to, like, and especially growing up in the 80s having like hip
Yes.
hop beat around and so ubiquitous
Yes.
back then, right? I was
Yes.
very anti everything Latin and my parents culture and their music because I was so entrenched in Bronx and New York City culture, right? And hip
Hmm.
hop culture.
Yeah.
But like as I've recently gotten into like I'm coming to realize like, wow, I did not realize like my parents had my sisters in bomba dance troops. And so
Yeah.
like if I'm not mistaken, right? If I'm not mistaken, I believe samba like bomba has its roots, indigenous roots based in Africa, right? Musically.
Yes. Absolutely.
you
Yeah.
expand
Yeah.
on that a bit more because honestly, I'm sitting here going, "What the fuck's a bamba?" I don't mean it disrespectfully. I just swear
No,
I've
no,
never
no,
heard it
no. This
No.
before
is
in
No.
my
what we're
No.
life.
here
Yeah.
for. That's
Totally.
exactly what
Totally.
that. Yeah.
it's the way that the instruments were made, and the way that they were put together. These were the slave instruments, like things like the beating bow and those type of things. That the way that the drums were stretched out, like, and then they just adopted it and infused some of the Latin culture into it. But it's all built off of those African rhythms,
Yeah.
and it's like hypnotic. Like it's some of the most hypnotic music ever. You might not even like it, but if it comes on, or maybe you change that, right? You might not seek it out, but if it comes on, you probably like it. It's just got this kind of pull and gravity to it. It's amazing. And as you were speaking, right, like I was forming the words to say the same thing, because that was the impact of hip hop culture. It was a culture. It was already packed. It was put together. It was bubbling. It was forming. It was active and seeking involvement, like wanting people to get into it and push it. Um, and when you're young and impressionable, like for real, like I was like, this is it. And
Same
I
feeling.
just dove in, and then I went on a completely different path where my sister really embraced the Brazilian culture. And she's way more fluent than I am. She's been way more than I have. And she's just connected to that side of the family in ways that I am not. um, because I embraced this other culture that was emerging at the time, and make no mistake, it was a culture. There were rules to that society, like, and
So if I
a lot of
understand,
that currency was the respect. Yeah.
like, was it like weird then to be part of multiple cultures? So you had to like almost pick one and ingratiate into it. You couldn't like hop around. I'm not. I don't know if I'm framing that right, but
No, you are. Because at first it was awkward, right? Because my mom used to make me samba in front of people when they would come over, like when I was a little kid. Like I remember like being like 7 or 8, and my mom throwing on the samba record and saying, pulling me out, and I get my feet moving. I was killing it too. I was. But then around 13, I'm that kid. It's 82, 83. Um, the hip hop is there in the undertone. It's everywhere we walk around. I'm seeing it in the street. I'm seeing the trains painted. Like, it was amazing. It was magical to me,
so
and
you were
it was
like,
calling me. Yeah.
I just want to like make sure everybody understands what he's literally saying here. So like, let's say, when does hip hop to you start? Like, when does it start?
Um,
Um,
for me, 79. For me, like as a 9-year-old, starting to expand a little bit more, and the other kids at school who are talking about things. Somebody's older brother put somebody on, and it took a while to get to us. I mean, for the older kids, I mean, they were probably, getting it back in 77, 78, as it was just starting to form up.
So what's the first hip hop song that you can remember being like, yeah, that's that shit?
Um, it was like the first, like one of the first big crossover collabo songs that kind of stuck in my head. This would be like a pre-scenario kind of scenario. It was I think it was the Force MDs versus the Fat Boys on the Staten Island ferry. I think that was the song was actually, that was the premise of it. So they were battling on the Staten Island ferry.
Nice. That's
And
crazy.
I think that sounds familiar. Like I don't know why. Like I feel like I've literally seen that as the track name somewhere before.
I'm gonna have to search it out. And if somebody's doing it, googling now, maybe it's a different set of artists, but it's a battle on the Staten Island ferry. Foursome D's was involved in it. I know it's Foursome D's. I think it's the Fat Boys, but it's that kind of song, right? Where you're just like, what? That even happened? Like, yes, that was happening, and that's when you started seeing these different groups that were finding success individually, like doing these like crossovers and collabs, and that's where the connections are starting to happen. um, and it became really interesting. And then right after that came the crews, and then the first crew that really had an impact on me was the Juice Crew. Um, I was like, Molly Mall's In Control was like my high school jam. I remember I had invested in a double cassette Walkman that I bought from one of those Japanese import shops that used to be on 72nd Street, and I spent my whole after school money on that one. But it was worth it until it got jacked from me in some class where somebody got it out of my drawer. But
Yeah,
I
I
would dub
understand
Molly Mall
exactly
In
what that feels
Control for
like.
other people. Yeah.
Yo,
I'm
honestly,
sorry.
this is
I got a
amazing
little
stuff, my
long-winded
guy.
on that
No,
one.
this is perfect. You don't understand. Normally, I have to try to trick people into doing what you're just magically doing. This is it. You're doing the show properly. This is we want knowledge nuggets. Yo, for me, it's mad helpful. Like even like the 2 months or whatever we've been doing this, my understanding of the foundational elements of what made hip hop special, why New York like is the mecca, we'll say. Like I understood it was cool. I understood a lot, but as far as Wikipedia goes, right? Like as far as you can watch a documentary or something, right? Or whatever. And that goes so far. But to hear you just describe being there at that time, literally living those moments, having things happen that other people rap about and stuff. Like you got to understand, this is really important, I think, for everybody that's not from New York to hear you describe this stuff. Because yo, I did this thing with a 17-year-old, the same kind of thing. I was talking to a 17-year-old and they didn't even know how the fuck I grew up. I was like the old guy in this conversation, like proper old guy. And like, I'm like, yeah, there wasn't computers in my house growing up. And he's like, right? Like he couldn't handle that. So that's why it's called Bridge the Gap. Because yo, if
Yeah.
me listening to your like, it's not okay. Like, I have a good idea at this point of a little bit what it's like, but every time I hear more, it just paints the picture. And everyone in the audience, like, yo, when I asked about the samba thing before, bamba or whatever, another guy was like, I want to know more too. Why? Because we don't know this stuff. People don't talk about it. You can't even Google half this shit. So
And
anytime you
even
want
if
to get long
and the
winded,
truth is, even if you could Google it, right, you're not gonna get the full breadth of, like sometimes you could read a sentence and depending on what's on your mind, it doesn't even register,
Mm-mm.
and then you read it at another time when you're incredibly vulnerable emotionally and you don't even realize it, and you're reading something in depthly, not even realizing that you're giving it this much attention, and then you read something in it and it just touches you, and it's something that you've read before, but it's because that reading sometimes doesn't do you the same service as hearing
ah,
something from
like yo,
somebody's
but
mouth.
it's not even just hearing it. Do you not see the smile on his face as he's describing this, the pure
Yeah,
bliss of thinking about the foundation of this? And yo, like that,
yeah.
you can't just get that. So you get as long-winded, whatever. You can be as breezy and ever flowing as you need to be Z up on this
Exactly, man.
stream Z.
No doubt. That's what's up.
All right, so let's say you're like 12, 13, you're surrounded by hip hop. You've already indicated that you're paying attention to the graffiti arts. You've already indicated that you a dancer. So you're already ingratiated in at least three of these elements. Are you already into lyrics and rapping at this age? Is this already something you're interested in? Are you interested in the DJ side of things?
I idolized the MCs. That's what happened because that's when I was coming of age. Like so, when I was 15, that's the jump off of the lyricists, right? The lyricists taking prominence. Before it was the DJ was still headlining, like it was just jumping off DJ Jazzy Jeff and Fresh Prince, but the DJ was the headliner in most of those scenarios, right? And rightfully so. At the time, it was the DJ that really got things off the ground and made people pay attention to the level that brought it to where it is now, right? Um, but the MC took the prominence, and so as a 15-year-old, seeing like super confident, super suave, Rakim, Big Daddy Kane, super smart, KRS-One, provide me with just a different perspective lyrically to pull me into, exploring more and digging more into, the real history of things. um it had a tremendous impact. Like that was it. So then I became a fan of lyricism, but I still wasn't like writing seriously until I was like 17 or 18. And at that point in time, we would play football games in Central Park, and and I would write recap rhymes of the game, and I would just kick it to one or two homies afterwards. And both of them were starting to be like, "Yo, you're getting kind of good at this. Like, you might want to think about it." And then at some point, one
Hold
of
up.
them
You
connected
were you
me.
were you were like rapping out. Was it like freestyles or were you writing? But like recaps
No,
of the
I
game.
was writing recaps of the football games we was having on the
Do you
weekends.
have like a sample of what that would be like? Can you kick a little recap
Oh,
rhyme?
dude, I man, I have no idea. Like, I wish I still had some of that stuff.
That's fair.
There's in between and during the rough times, like, there's an eviction that happened where I lost a lot of really important stuff, and all those old books, all those old memories, like, gone. But you know it was definitely one of those learns in life that you don't want to repeat. And but man, that those rhymes, man, like, uh I wasn't even thinking about it. I wasn't even thinking seriously about at all about being an MC. I was just having fun making lyrical recaps of these games. And I think that's when it was like the what I had been intaking for so long was finally starting to seep in. And of course, like, the rhymes, I can tell you this, they were probably patterned after Big Daddy Kane, because I would steal his rhyme pattern.
That's
Yo,
amazing.
actually, I kicked this verse on one of these releases this week, this year. It was, I remember back in high school with the fellas writing rhymes for my man Sean and Kevin Ellis, and they would tell this little wannabe star he's on to something with it. Breeze form, then I come to live it. I used to listen to Kane, his flow, I bit it. The way he leaned on the first two, hold on the third, then on the fourth he hit it. Of course, he did it on another level. I'll never compare, never be there. Just like there'll never be another Breeze ever nowhere, and there'll never be another you. That's if you keeping it true. So that was the verse.
That was dope.
Was man.
That's
Peace.
dope. Those are the type of lyrics that, personally speaking, I always, that's the shit that made me gravitate. So I mean, generally as MCs, most MCs we're always all preaching, self, be yourself type thing.
Yeah.
But you're putting it into words that I don't think I've ever heard put in that way.
Yeah. That was
Peace.
really dope, my guy. That was amazing. You somehow compared yourself to a legend while not doing it in a way that will piss anyone else, while also making your listener be part of the legendary status. That is actually kind of legendary. Big Zoo says you're a great illustrator and you also love comics. Did that also start when you're young? Thank you, Big Zoo. You're always very helpful.
It did. It did. I got um I I got bit by the comic bug in 1980.
Woo.
I went to PS9 on 84th Street and Columbus Avenue. That's still Upper West Side, but that's like more the swanky part. But the public school was still there. In fact, my mom, I think, may have exaggerated some things for us to go to school down there, and not where we live. Um, so we can enjoy something a little bit different. But it was a crazy mixed school, and every lunch break I would go out with this dude Robert Lee and Anthony B. And Anthony was like, Eastern European, and Robert Lee was Asian American, and that was my squad. And we go to West Side Comics, and then Robert started boosting from West Side Comics, and he would come with the bubble, and me and Ant would work the two sides of the bins, and then Robert would just grab clumps of back issues and just throw them in his coat, and then we would all just peace out like nothing was happening. And so we would hit up West Side Comics on a regular, while we were on that little spree. And eventually we just got shook because then we just kind of felt them that eyes burning when we would start walking in there. Like they knew
The
something was up.
paranoia of successful crimes. The paranoia that comes with successful crimes. Let me tell you something. You create you get enough, you get away with a crime enough times, just natural paranoia just starts coming about you. You're just like,
that's facts, man. I had to run shoplifting chocolate bars from the grocery store when I was a teenager. And you just knew it. Like after a while, you're like, there's some law of averages shit or something that's about to like kick in here and it's gonna fuck me up. And then one day you like feel it might not happen to you, but then you might feel that hand on your shoulder and you're like, fuck.
Yeah. Dude, yeah. We were shook. We were so shook. But with like 10 and 11, and that's a part of New York that like, like you start with the corner store, and that's your first place. And if they're sleeping over there, it opens the door. And I think every kid goes through a little boosting spree in the city. It just is some continue and make a career out of it, right? Like
I definitely went through a boosting stage. I was boosting toy cars at the McCrory's in the Bronx on Allerton Avenue, and I got caught. And the dude that caught me, there was another kid from my school there, and my father was the superintendent of the building, and it was a senior citizen building, right? And so everybody at my school thought that I was a rich kid on the low, and then my dad owned the building, right? So there was a kid in the fucking place when I got caught robbing that snitched on me and told them where I lived, and dude took me to my door and like brought me to my mom, and the snitch kid pointed me all the way out. Trash. But all New York City kids go through a boosting phase.
I'm gonna say though, right. I'm gonna say that might also be a Montreal thing because I know a lot of us out there chatted out a little bit. We got a million people here. Like you got a lot of corner stores where you can get away with a thing, and then you get to the grocery store and you realize a hoodie with the pocket out, right? You just walk in with your hands pushed out like that, right? And you realize, I can put a couple little things in there. And then, I went to the video store. Everybody like stole shit from there too. Like people just really like to steal it. I mean, when you're young, it's adventure because there's that adrenaline rush, right? And everything feels like a victimless crime when you're young. Like, it's a company, it's a store, it's like whatever. It's not like whatever,
Getting back to school and divvying up them comics felt like the biggest reward ever. But then that got me into X-Men, and he had gotten some back issues, and it was the Chris Claremont, John Byrne run on X-Men. So if you're a deep comic head, this is an iconic run for comics, period.
I am a big comic head, and I'm really gonna enjoy this part.
Yeah, so those comics sucked me in. Before I was like kind of interested, but that line at the age of 10, and so then I started buying more of the back issues into their run, and it was right around the transition when Dave Cockrum was coming back to the book, and that was still really, really good. I was enjoying the Dave Cockrum return. That was when they had the whole Shire thing, and the Starjammers were introduced. Colossus got killed the first of a dozen times. Like it was some good stuff. So I was sucked in, and then I've been drawing since I was 4 years old. So outside of music,
how'd that start?
I just would scribble and draw on everything. I've drawn every single book that I had. All my storybooks had like drawings inside of them. Anything that I could draw on, literally, I would draw on. That's just how it was coming out of me. And I was always the kid doodling in the notebook in school on everything, every single page, not just a random doodle here and there, like every margin on every single page in every class had drawings inside of it. But I was able to keep up I wasn't killing it because I wasn't really invested, so I didn't really apply myself. But I was easily able to do the test and stuff because I was reading the John Byrne Fantastic Fours through high school, and I don't know what kind of research he was doing, but man, he was digging into some deep cosmic science around that time, and the verbiage that he would have Reed Richards leveraging throughout those pages was like some next level stuff. So I had to become smarter to keep up with reading those comic books, but I wasn't reading nothing else but top percentile for like reading. So with art and with the
Hold on a second, because
yeah,
yo, that's big what you just said. The comic books was mad smart with the language use, so it forced you as a youth. Maybe you didn't care about stuff in a more formal way, but it forced you to up your knowledge game to keep up with the comics. Now, personally, I'm interested in alternate education because I think a lot of the times people have trouble with school. It's because it's kind of
yeah,
boring.
yeah.
And maybe using comic books, you could teach science. Like, just that's the
Absolutely.
first thing that popped into my head when he said that. Like, yo, if I could read a graphic novel that broke down photosynthesis and other such things, that would be kind of cool. I mean, you can make it like really cool with plants sucking up
I,
sun and
I could
shit.
echo. I could echo his sentiments. I learned when my parents used to put me on punishment and take away my comic books and my baseball cards and the things that mattered to me as a kid, right?
Hmm.
My father would make me read the Encyclopedia Britannica. Like that was part of my
Yes.
punishment. Like you got to read this. We bought this. You're going to read it. We bought this for your education. You're going to read this. And what I would then do is look up all the things that matter to me from comics. So now I'm looking up Cyclops. I'm looking up and I'm learning about Greek mythology, right?
Yeah.
And Greek mythology, even Norse mythology with Thor,
Yes.
Ooh,
and
that's
like
great shit.
Yes.
learning what a
Yes.
Wolverine, learning what animals were, because what's a Wolverine exactly? Like what's a Wolverine? Like I this is a cool word, and then just words. Period. Like he was saying, posthumous, posthumous. I don't. I
Yep.
still to this day don't
I
know
think it's
how to pronounce
I
it
think it's
correctly because
posthumous.
I've always just read it in comics. So there was no audio telling me this is how you pronounce this word. It's now that I've watched enough videos where I hear people say posthumous that I'm like, okay, so I guess it's posthumous.
It's
But to
posthumous.
me, I'm like,
Is
it's
that how it's
posthumous.
pronounced? Isn't it posthumous?
I've
I
heard a lot
thought
of people.
I can't weigh in
I've
on
heard a
that
lot
one
of
either because
educated people say posthumous.
that's
I
so
always thought
weird.
it was posthumous.
I thought it was posthumous. Yo, y'all can weigh in the comments wherever. I don't really fucking know,
But
to be honest.
to echo what BREEZ is saying, as a fellow grow up in New York City, um, uh, 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 um, uh, around all this culture, right? And then
hmm
to also be entrenched in comic books because it challenges you in ways that like
hmm
maybe the school system isn't, is like that's I totally can relate to that. I totally can relate. Absolutely.
Yo, believe it or
when
not, the
when you
comment
said
went both directions
encyclo
with that.
but the Encyclopedia Britannica part, right? Like looking up those characters, like I'm picturing like the way they had the images on the page and then the descriptions underneath it, like. And Encyclopedia Britannica was a big investment for parents back then. Like it was big. Like if you had they were the that was different than the World Book. It wasn't a World Book. Britannica was like the next level. That's like nowadays investing in a decent computer for your kids.
I have seen the books, but I've not had the books. But I can appreciate how cool it would be to like be able to do that and to be able to get that knowledge on and to be able to like have the comic books incentivized. This is a cool chat. Like this is really like what I like getting into is because context too. Like I sit there and go, my whole like education with Google this. Like Google came out in 98, right? And I start
Hmm.
high school in 2000. So you just got to understand like the whole thing for me was always how to internet.
Yeah.
Um Yo, I have a question from the comments, and you might be extra qualified to answer it in light of our comic book chat. It's
Hmm.
from my dude Nuclear Convoy. He goes, so it sounds like y'all were Marvel fans, not DC. How important is it that these stories were based out of NYC too?
No, DC was definitely in there, because the second comic that grabbed me was the New Teen Titans by Wolfman and Perez,
Mm.
and that was another one of those super iconic runs, leading up to one of my favorite comic books of all time, which was X-Men Teen Titans, drawn by Walt Simonson, my favorite artist when it comes to dynamic anatomy, and inked by Terry Austin, who was a part of that iconic X-Men run. Um, the only thing that could have been better is if maybe Walt did the breakdowns and then Perez did the finishes, and then Austin inked it all. And a John Byrne variant cover. I would have gone for all that. So yeah, DC was definitely in there. I'm sorry, and I forgot the other part of the question already because I had to speak on that one because that comic series spoke to me as a teenager growing up in the '80s, seeing this group of teenagers trying to work it out. Like they really tapped into something when they put that book together.
Yeah, my guy says you have great tastes in artists with capital great. Like, yo, it's really like crazy. I don't think he's watched a lot of my interviews, and he pops in here, and I see like I think it's a transformer behind you, and the dude's got like 1,000 of them in his room back at his mom's crib, and he's obsessed with comics. And hearing you, and I'm like, this is crazy, great timing. Like, it was meant to be that you went in this direction with this conversation.
Man, it's a good conversation, man. I appreciate y'all having me again.
Yeah, and it's cool because like we barely even like touched the 80s, you know? And we're this like it's been so much time. This is like perfect for me, right? Like to me, it
Yeah.
doesn't matter if I have to talk to you 17 times. If each time is going to be as delightful as this, you know? It's just a pleasure. Like this is an amazing way to spend a Saturday.
Awesome. Same.
All right, so you
I
already
thought
have the established in is so you're into drawing, you're into dancing, you're into rhyming, you're into comics, you're into lore and literature. Do you read books also? Are you also into like the reading?
Um, I go through reading phases where I can jump into some sci-fi and go down some rabbit holes. And so I think the first time I did that was the Foundation series, but I would I read the entire series like within a month's time. Like so I'd go through one book in like 3 or 4 days. I just wouldn't put it down because I don't have patience for for books for the most part because I want to get to the resolution. And now I don't find myself with those big chunks of time to digest as much as I could. But I need to get back to it because it practices a different kind of discipline. The only thing I've done is like business and those type of books to support me with job growth. But that's really the only place where I've focused attention on books recently.
That's amazing. I mean, the fact that you like even are able to point out that it has a kind of discipline to it, I like that. I like because I read a lot of books in the last few years, and the discipline is literally the best way to describe how you read books in volume.
Mhm.
You have to dedicate time to it, and you have
Yeah.
to give up Netflix. I
Yes.
promise. Okay,
Absolutely.
she gets an hour or whatever, fair, because sometimes it's a wise move to make sure she's happy, like all the
Mhm.
time. But like, it takes a lot of like sacrifice to actually pull that off. So I respect what you're saying a lot because it's very like aware and real with it. Um, so you're like said around 17-ish, I think, that you started to get more serious with rhyming. And I
Yeah.
wonder why you started to get more serious with rhyme. Oh, you're right, because you did let me see, the recap thing happened. People said you were
Yeah.
cool with it. And then what happens?
And then my homie plugged me into Cassius Clay Mack up in the Bronx, and he was a producer. And he was like, I think you need to meet one of my boys here. And it was after I had been doing like some open mics during freshman year of college, and getting served in MC battles in college parties because that would happen. Like you go to the college parties, and then every now and then Like they throw on some beats and the heads would just battle like right there on the spot. And like it was battles were everywhere. It wasn't a stage thing. It wasn't organized. Like you were always prepared to be called out or to call somebody else out. And I was brash and I just started rhyming. Of course, I thought I was the best. And I would go into other people's schools and call them out. And you don't do that because it's their school for one, right? And they could be the worst rapper ever, but they're gonna get love because it's in their school. So you got to find a way to dismantle them. And if you can't do that, you are not winning on their ground. But of course, I thought I could do that. And so after getting served a lot there, but learning and then coming back and then holding service, right? Um, that's where you start getting the respect. And that's when my man was like, I got to connect you to my boy Cassius Clay Mack. He's got a little in-home studio. And that's when I started working with a beat maker from the Bronx. Cassius Clay Mack actually went on to then produce a track on Biggie's second album. And the I think it's Niggas Bleed or Niggas, one or the other. But he produced that track on that album. Eventually, that's what he went on to do. But he was like a hungry young beat maker. He had a little 4-track recorder in his basement, little Shure mic connected to it, and he was just looking for an MC to work with. But he was really into music theory, and he picked up on the formula. And he's a true Bronx native, and being the birthplace, like he was keyed in. So he was like, here's how you lock it in. And he had me writing the 8-bar intros, 16 bars, 8-bar hooks, 16 bars, 8-bar hooks, maybe 4-bar bridge, 16-bar, bring it out. He gave me such strict guidelines for the way that I was putting songs together back then, that it really helped me, develop as an artist. Plus, we were trying to get the best quality we could out of this
Hold
4
up.
track.
I saw a Facebook post recently that said there were no bridges in hip hop. Are there bridges in hip hop?
Yeah, there is. Who said that?
I don't remember. I sincerely
What?
don't remember.
What?
Yo,
Like
give me one
bridges?
second. I
Like
just gotta
Yeah,
grab
yeah,
this
like a
charger
musical
from the
bridge.
computer.
Like so I saw somebody say that in I don't remember who said it. I'm not gonna lie. I saw
yeah,
it on
no,
Facebook, and I was like, "Hold up, BREEZ is talking about like back in the day times, and specifically used the term bridge." And I'm like, "I know what a bridge is, and I believe there were bridges, but I stayed out of that because I'm trying not to argue on Facebook and waste time, right? Like it's not worth
yeah,
it." But I saw that and it popped out at me, and I'm a little bit going, "Wait, there are bridges, right?" He just said
yeah,
that. Okay,
no,
so I
absolutely.
just wanted to dead that because I think BREEZ EVAHFLOWIN knows a lot more about original hip hop than a lot of us do.
Yes, yes, no, absolutely. There are absolutely bridges in hip hop. That's not a legit. I use them. I am not I'm not the guy that invented using bridges in hip hop. Like
Right.
it's
No, I'm
it's
not.
been there since
Yeah.
always, pretty much. I'd imagine. Like
and and, and it comes in a lot of different forms, right? Like the scratch break right before that last verse is essentially the bridge. It takes you over there, right? So it's you're formatting it that way, and then it opens up that 4 or that 8. Normally a 4 if you want a quick transition for something different. But you just want to change it up, even if it's just like stretch out the beat and extend it a little bit and hit that dan 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 dan, and then like drop it again. There's all sorts of little right places to put those things that that are universally formatted to be appealing when people listen to them, because the way that people conditioned to listen to music from the Motown era coming out of that. And so essentially
Oh, that's
the best
huge.
hip hop was basically formatted around that same kind of formula. And a lot of those old Juice Crew jams were formatted in a similar fashion.
Yo, hold up. This is actually big. Do you guys hear what he's saying? Because we're talking about like original hip hop is effectively, and we're saying the stuff that did well, we'll call it stuff that maybe people love today. Effectively took successful popular music of another genre, formatted and structured it in a way that would be appealing to listeners, and use that magic to create appealing sounds, ignoring perhaps a little bit personal ego and how they feel like things should be, in order to make sure that there's more accessibility within their music. And that's an idea that stems from the 80s and stuff.
Yeah, it's the tail end, right? It's when the tighten up started happening. It's when you started seeing a little more crossover success, and the songs that were achieving that were the ones that were fitting the format. Now some of the best songs, like you think about My Melody, and when that dropped, and like those weren't 16s. Like Rob was just going until he was done, until he felt done, until it felt like it was done. And that's the essence that we picked up on, and we were like, that's that dude right there, right? As a 15-year-old on the bus going out to one of them summer camp trips or something like that. Like there was nothing like that. But then the crossover success came in the formatting. And then when they started doing the format, that's when the video started. They started investing in the videos. So most of the early videos that you see for a lot of these rappers, you'll hear the formatting in those videos. But they didn't make the video for My Melody when that came out. It was just rocking on the radio, and they was moving that vinyl. Um, but that was an amazing jam. I think it was better than some of the more formatted songs that came out later.
No, but like I agree with you. And it like so here's what happens. Sometimes we have these conversations in our 2020 something perspectives, right? Where what's good, what's bad, what's proper, because we see people make choices that are effectively pop marketing moves. And perhaps they work better, but it's not as maybe appealing as, say, the sonic soundscape of a great Brave Underground track, like a Rakim would have been, right? Like that
Yeah.
shit's fucking fire. It really is. But like, I'm sure there were a lot of people that also tried to do what Rakim did in some way that nobody's heard of to this day. And Rakim happened to be like the one that did it, right? And
Hmm.
everyone else ended up going maybe here or there and making some choices along the way because there's business attached to it. So I
Yep.
think there's this weird rose-colored view that all the people of the golden era, as we put it, were just like completely never willing to make pop choices. And I feel like that was never true, but it's kind of hard to like describe that to people who don't know a lot about it. But you're just like, yeah, they did that. And like we fucked with Rakim. And yo, looking back, everyone knows that one more than say a lot of the other ones. But you need more than just the Rakim to push an industry.
Yes, absolutely. And but it all followed suit, and it all followed the same thing. And then it evolved, and it changed after that. But that's when commercial success is gonna start to change and alter things in a lot of different ways. And to your point, like there was so many amazing MCs out there, like so many, like we're just in the city. And it was such a special thing to be, because there was a the main angle in the 80s also was, it wasn't the mimicry that I've seen in the past 2 decades, right? It was your angle was your uniqueness. That was your selling point, right? It was, what is your angle, and then you would build this universe around these characters that you created, right? And some people went really far, right? Where they had to, like, really fit these different stereotypes within their groups, but they were unique, and they had a different angle from everybody else, and that was encouraged at that time. So that was what was special about wanting to be an MC, or calling yourself an MC, because you're like, hey, I've got something special. I've got my own voice. I got my own angle. Here it is. And you
You
put
were
that out
becoming
there to
your
the
own
world.
superhero.
That's
Exactly.
amazing.
Exactly.
And that would be to be an MC.
Absolutely.
Now, would you say that's different than being a rapper?
Um, it is different. It's because for me, MC embraces more of the cultural aspect of it, and that means you are a participant in the culture. You know, there's some amazing people who can write lyrics really well. But I don't know if I'd just put them down in the term rapper because of the stigma attached to just that word, especially by some of the purists, right? Um, so I think the differentiation is like there's lyricists and then there's MCs more so than there's rappers and MCs. Like there's some people who write really great lyrics, but they weren't out there. They weren't in the ciphers. They weren't jumping up when we walked into, the room screaming who won a battle. They weren't. Like they weren't in it to that extent. They weren't at different open mics. They weren't in different boroughs, like rocking in the cut spots, like rocking Wills up on 125th, where he would make his mixtapes with MCs who would come through. Like they never touched that, right? But they were around just writing lyrics. Um, so, but that was where the culture was growing, and that's where cultural exchange was happening. And so that to me is the differentiator, and as it expanded and evolved past and after that, right? Like, culture is where you make it, where you connect and where you spread that with others, and you can make that culture or you can join that culture, but odds are it probably already exists in most major cities. And then if it doesn't, like, it's easy to get people together because hip hop just pulls people together like that and gives them a place where they can just feed off each other with very special and unique kind of energy with the kind of music we do.
Yo, I love what you're saying because it's all true to me, at least. Like I agree with everything. We're actually trying really hard to, not just myself, but a bunch of us to like kind of pull off a bit more of an organization to the Anglo hip hop scene in Montreal. And honestly, it just is like that. It's this beautiful thing where people come through and everybody's got this unique talent, and there's so much great music, too. And everybody has these voices and ideas that they get to share in so many different walks of life. And yeah, some of it might be more hip hop, some of it might just be more rappers, but just to watch this blending of stuff happen, I think is pretty cool. But I think your just insight is so cool. Like I know your life is also cool, but like your insight is you, man. I just watch you talk about stuff on YouTube. I'm not even gonna lie. I would just totally watch that. Nah, it's cool, man. Like it's like you hear it in your lyrics, but like hearing you just expand on stuff, man, it's nice. Um, so basically you link up with the producer dude. We learn about the
Yeah,
structuring of songs and what
yeah.
happens at that point. Do you start like putting out music into the world? What year is this also
Um,
so that we can frame it?
Man, my mom's did her thing, right? But growing up in a single parent household, and then with old school mom, there wasn't a lot of talk, about anything too deep or anything. The past was always like this mystery to me. Like she wasn't bringing up nothing. She wasn't talking about nothing. It wasn't that kind of an open conversation relationship with moms, right? And so I made some odd decisions as I look back, but I got with somebody around that same time that I'm starting to make music with my man Mac, and the demo tape is starting to circulate, and um, we started a group that he was producing for us, and it was we called ourselves the Group Home, right around 1991. And then I remember we got a call from somebody, and it sounded like it could have been, Dap maybe even, but somebody called us from Group Home, was like, y'all need to stop calling yourselves Group Home. And they were calling from that's when caller ID first came out. They were calling from the offices um, of the company. So then we were like, oh man. So right after we started seeing all the Group Home promotional stickers, so we had to change our names from Group Home to the Funky Street Urchins, which was just terrible, but we did it anyway. And it was me, my man Rockstay Pood, my man Foo Live. We were like a leaders of the new school kind of type of band. Um, we got our demo tape over to Stretch and Bob. They let us come on. Uh,
Hold on, you
and
gotta
I
talk a lot
remember
more about that.
the
I literally
compliment they
just
gave us was hilarious.
Yeah,
I
because I
think
don't.
they was clowning us on the low, but they was being really cool about it.
So yeah, tell us a bit about that. Yeah. So Stretch and Bobbito to you makes a whole lot of sense. For me, people kept saying it. I'm like, hold up, what's a fucking Stretch and Bobbito? I know the answer now. Last Saturday we watched the documentary about Stretch and Bobbito.
Yeah,
So now I know what it is to be a Stretch kid and a Bobbito kid. So when
yeah,
Big Zoo said he was a Bobbito kid, I didn't know what he meant. Then I heard about that and I'm like, oh, that makes a lot of sense. Actually, I've heard Big Zoo rap a whole bunch of times. That makes total sense to
yeah.
me now. So with that, why don't you share a little bit about an experience like that, like actually meeting them and going through that whole like route or whatever? Just talk about that, and how important that is, so that people can understand actually how cool that really is.
Oh man, I just remember that night, like riding the train over up to uptown Manhattan, the one train up there to where the studio was at, all the way uptown. And it was like in this old, like kind of like it was like a campus, but it looked like a church. And we'd like go downstairs and it was this like cool waiting area and all these cool cats hanging in there. And it's me and my boys, and this is our first time like on any kind of platform, right? And I'm like 20 and just excited as all get up. Um, and they call us in the studio and they just ask us about our music, and we go through our spiel because our angle was, we are the group home, and we my one dude was like the court jester of the group. He was like the funny dude. My man Rockstay Pooh was like super serious. I was like the lyrical dude. So we each had our role in the group, and then we started spitting, and we did pre-prepared songs, right? So we literally did routines up in there. We was like doing each other's fill-ins and like doing like leaders of the new school type fills. Um, and so when we left, they were like, yo, they was doing routines. Yo, that was special. um, but we were like super excited. We took that as love. Like we were like, yo, we just got dapped. And then all the homies were like, yo, we heard you on Stretch and Bob. Like it was like, top of the world. Like it was nothing like it. Yeah, and I gotten to go back there many times since, right? And that's a blessing in and of itself. But that first time was like, it was like, and it was good to do it with the homies. But I think that was also um, one of the things that I had eventually come to learn, that the producer, even though he went with the group idea, he didn't really want to do that. And he had always wanted me to just do my own thing. Um, but I think throughout my early career, like there was always yeah, uh, I always felt like I would work better as a part of a group than doing my own thing. And I think that maybe it was part confidence thing, but also like um, I didn't really have a lot of family here, and oftentimes you got crew like that's like your family, and you really you want the best for them along with the best for yourself. But it's hard to get it all, and oftentimes people don't want to collaborate you when you come with a lot of baggage. And so definitely some learns from early on, but that's the earliest memory, was me bringing the crew through. But sometimes you reflect on it and you're like, what could have been if it had just been me on a solo tip, like focusing on just self from back then. And then once you're established, you can work some other things out. So um it's just as I reflect on it, right, like all these thoughts start coming up.
Oh,
And
but these are like really important thoughts, right? Because there's a lot
yeah,
of
man.
people today that don't know how to approach things. Like a lot of people. Like if you were to say to me, is it better to be in a crew or not? I don't know. I did this really solo thing for a while. And the truth is, maybe I would have been smarter to work with people. Maybe I would have learned a lot of lessons in life working with people with regards to compromise, having to deal with people at that age that I had to learn later on in life. Whereas if I
Yeah.
was the star of my own show, as I was the whole time, it was a little bit harder to learn how to work with people later on in life. So maybe there were blessings in the situation that you had, because there's no way you work with two other people, everybody playing a role, and didn't have to learn a little one, two about politicking in the process.
Hmm. Oh yeah. Listen, I appreciate you for bringing that up, because as I think about it right now, I wouldn't want anyone that I've ever worked with to feel any kind of way about it, and I have no remorse for it, because of the skills that it taught me was just that, right? And oftentimes I would lead these groups, or these teams, I learned from each experience, like a different lessons in leadership, and currently that's my profession right now, and I'm really good at what I do, which I'm thankful for. But a lot of that was transferable skills from having been in those type of situations and working with so many different personalities, like, and you know artistic personalities are some of the strongest personalities to try to build consensus with, you know so if you can get a group of 6, 7, 5, whatever it is, however many, on the same page and moving in the same direction, like, you have developed some really solid leadership skills, and they are
Leadership
transferable.
skills.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was just about to say legit. It's
Oh
another,
my
people
gosh.
don't understand when dealing with our community, and if you're able to get us organized,
Hmm.
that's another type of leadership. That's a whole nother level. It's presidential type of like qualification. People don't realize, like it's very difficult. It's not easy to get. And then artists, us as artists,
Oh my
forget it,
gosh, we're
even
the
harder.
worst.
Yeah.
Yo, I have big respect for that. Honestly, trying to deal with people is not my forte in life. I'm learning on the fly real fucking quick. I did a whole interview with Iron Solomon and didn't smile. I forgot to smile the entire fucking thing. So like you're seeing, I actually have to sit there. And go, okay, make sure to. I heard him laugh, smile. Make sure to smile. Yo, that's these are all like skills I'm learning on the fly in
Yeah,
moments
man.
like that because it's important stuff. And so it's cool to be able to even just sharing that with us, right? So you're reflecting back on life, right? And everyone does that, right? That's a huge thing.
Yeah, man.
And then the fact is, there are multiple ways to perceive a moment. And sometimes what happens with us when we reflect is we get fixated on a perception and we
Hmm.
don't always see the other perceptions. So I don't know about your world and the universe, etc., but just being able to look at your life and have multiple perceptions kick in is just a blessing to everyone because it can remind us all that regardless of how we see things, is just a perception of the reality.
Yeah, man.
All right, so you basically went to Stretch and Bobito with your peeps, and are you also performing in a more formal way, or is it still battling in the streets? Are you all making albums? Like you got to understand, for you, it's like a blitz of like your life. For me, it's like, I mean, there's a lot of possibilities and tiers of what could have happened over that little period of time you're
Yeah, yeah,
describing. Like
yeah.
I don't fucking know. Are you like hanging out with peoples? Like I don't know anything, right? Like
Dude, uh, I was the sober MC for a long time, but I was rocking with my man from Washington Heights, was in my crew. We'd go up to Thayer Street around 1991. He started introducing me to the Magical Leaf, and the whole MC game transformed into something completely different. We were doing music seminars in 92, 93, 94, new music seminar,
it's
the
a music
world music
seminar.
seminar. So and so's sister is connected to so and so, has a seminar, like whatever the seminar was. That's where you went to connect with people. There was no internet, it was the
So
seminar.
seminar meaning like a bunch of people listening to a talk. Is that what you mean by
Talks.
seminar?
The bigger
Talks.
ones were organized into multiple events. So there'd be like events where they'd listen to your demo and give you feedback. And like Ice T would be on the panel and then chastise me for being too eager because I had only started rapping a few years earlier, and telling me that I had no idea what I was talking about. I was so pissed at that seminar session right there. But it was some of the best advice that anybody had ever given me. But he was telling
No,
me this
but
from up on the panel.
yo, cause like even my guy Ismail is like interesting. Like, yo, I don't know anything about what you're describing. This is literally the first I've heard of these musical seminars. Cause yo, I can see the Facebook live versions of these things and what it turned into 20 years later. I can tell you how to recreate this on Twitch in like in an hour or two. So I could tell you all about how to do this now, but it's so fascinating to know that this actually stems from something.
Dude, I'm gonna give it to you just like this. Think of music Comic Con
Wow.
and not South by Southwest. But South by Southwest may be the closest that you can come to the feeling of the seminars that used to happen. There was new music. There was How Can I Be down in Atlanta, um, and there would be multiple shows going on around it. The music seminar Battle for World Supremacy, which I was not good enough for back then, but I got good enough by the time Blaze came out. But that was the battle to be in. Like just seeing like Grim Reaper or Judgmental from Chicago jump up in there and just tear people up. Supernatural in the battle for world supremacy. Like,
So these were all battles?
X-Men, Rock Raider, battle for world supremacy. Like, yeah, it
So
was
hold
all
up, hold up.
battles
This
that
is
were
all
part of the
battles.
seminar.
So the
Yeah,
seminar was
these
like a
were
conference, and
the
then
first like big level battles.
so we got to break this down because again, no,
Mhm.
at least I never heard about this, so I want to make sure I don't sound like this for the next guy. So you got the seminar, and we'll call this like a conference, like where a company rents a hotel and shit. We'll just like for
Yeah.
whatever, and then
Yes.
throughout the day, there's a schedule of events and shit that's going on, and within
Yep.
that schedule of events, you have talks, maybe listening sessions, where
Mhm.
like people of the industry are congregating and linking up with people like yourself on the come up. So
Yep.
in a sense, it's like fucking the YouTube conference, VidCon. It's literally like VidCon, the YouTube
Mhm.
conference.
Yep.
Okay. And within that realms is this battle rap culture that's kind of brewing as these different events are happening. Because if we
Yep.
think about battle rap, right? We haven't gone this far back yet on this show one time yet. The earliest anyone's ever really talked about is like 2000, right? So you're like dropping some shit that's going all the way back is what it sounds like
Yep.
to me, unless I'm misinterpreting the situation.
No, 93, 94.
Wow. That's crazy knowledge nuggets right there. Okay, so you're at the musical seminars and you're competing in this battle rap circuit that is
Oh
kind of
no, no.
coming to life.
I couldn't even get on the card back then. I ain't had no clout yet.
Okay. I love your humility,
My
my guy.
comeuppance
That is
didn't happen
amazing.
till around 95, 96 is when I finally started making a little bit of a dent. But before that, I was like, please listen to my demo. And like, yo, you would package your demo tape. Like we made when we were group home, we made little houses. We would cover over the McDonald's Happy Meals, and we made it look like a house, and we would put like a piece of chocolate in there, put our demo tape, photos, stickers. Like you made it a big deal because you wanted that A&R to listen, because most of them tapes ended up in a big pile, and if they wasn't presented right, nobody was listening to it.
Man, yo, you know how cool that is that you're sharing this, right? Yo, because I think like people have this glamorized view of the past where people didn't have to do shit like that. Like somehow that wasn't part of the game back in the day. No, and I swear this because I talk to people in the role that I'm in a lot and I observe a lot of things. So I'm not trying to name names or be a negative Nilly or anything, but there is 100% this idea that people weren't doing things like that that is fucking floating out around there. So it's actually really like for me, like hearing you say this shit right now, oh my gosh, in the meta conversations of my life, I've like, you don't know how grateful I am that you're sharing this with me.
I'm kind of happy you letting me let this out, man. At least this is being added to the annals, right? Someday somebody's gonna come back and pin it all together, and hopefully this could fill in some of that. This should
Ah,
be written on the walls with some zoo.
I love this. This is a great chat. Honestly, Breeze. I'm really enjoying this. You're a fucking you can feel like your leadership educational tones of this. It's like you understand the vibe of what we're going for and you just running with it. And that's perfect. That's what we love here.
Hey man, this is like I said, it's an awesome platform to have. Thank you again, man. Thank you again.
Honestly, it's more our pleasure. I must say that for real. Like it's just a gift. Yo, like I I did album reviews for like 4 years. I mean, I still kind of do them, but like I've been loafing because this is way more fun. And people would like tell me to Google things a lot, as in like talking about New York albums, as I'm talking about this and that. And like I tried. I stopped trying. I went through a phase where I tried to Google bars and I tried to do it a lot. And then I had to stop because, yo, unless there's some back ass fucking forum that happens to have a debate on that shit somewhere contextualized in some hidden fucking shit that doesn't exist anywhere, 9 times out of 10, it's a waste of time. And then you end up with Urban Dictionary. So if it's on Urban Dictionary, okay. If it's not, like, it's a waste of time. So having a guy like you explain things and having all the people, especially like, yo, shout out Flacco Bayo, man, because without him, obviously, we wouldn't be here having this conversation and all of his insight. It makes me better at what I do, and it helps me understand both the music and all the choices people make in the music better. And that's
Mhm.
something that's really hard to find, is the history of why people make choices.
Yeah.
Um, but you still seem to have gone from you're going through, you're participating in it too. So you're there and you're showing love. That's
Mhm.
important. And you're handing out tapes with houses and you put effort into that, but you're present. So you're making that effort to be there, which means you probably had to spend some money and put dollars in somebody's pocket to get there.
Yeah, man. Oh yeah.
Ooh.
Oh yeah.
It also means it's
But
not free back then either to do things. Sorry, I'm kind of
nah,
doubling down on some
you
shit.
paid to go to the seminar, and the seminar was expensive, right? You paid to go to the events afterwards because they wasn't always included. And you're paying your dues, like you're just trying to get on. Like soon after the seminars, the Lyricist Lounge started popping off. And so then I'm paying my dues there too, right? I'm showing up at 7 p.m., knowing they ain't even loading in until about 9:30, right? But I'm there at 7 p.m. There's already 5 people ahead of me in the line.
You're on top.
And
You're early.
yeah, and I don't get to touch the mic until um 1:30 in the AM, when most of the crowd left, um because I just, wasn't up there yet. And I had to pay my dues. And so, by the time they got to me on the list, it was like, oh, it's super late night, no one left in the spot. And I'm trying to light it up as best I can. So, the 7 or 8 people left in the room will vibe with me when I show back up. And so that's going on also around that time. We're still shopping that demo tape. We're getting feelers, but no one's really biting. um and then life hit, and it hit really hard. And I had to fall back from everything for a little bit. Fell off the scene for like a good 2 years. Had to deal with some personal matters. And finally my man Cassius Clay Mac hit me up like, yo, I know you don't rhyme no more, but I made this beat. And that's when he hit me with the beat for Forsaken. And if you never heard it, it had this vocal hook that went, my God, why hast thou forsaken me? And he had like the best piano loop ever for it. Uh, and I just kind of like wrote like a couple of different stories to this beat. And the two perfect like 24 bar verses, and they just fit really good on it. And I sent it, not sent, I'm thinking I'm sending it to him. I went to his crib and recorded it because he didn't send anything back then. And that's when he had first gotten um, an ADAT, which was a big deal in 95.
Stopping. Can you explain what that means?
Yeah, it was basically VHS tapes were being leveraged to record vocals, and they could record up to 8 tracks comfortably, with really good quality. Plus, it was the digital strip allowed you to queue up different regions for the first time in ways that you couldn't do with the 4 track before that.
What do you mean?
So, because uh, the VHS tapes have the digital code on it where you can line them up. You could edit a lot more efficiently on an ADAT. So he could bring me back to this top of the track or top of the verse or wherever it was, and like automate that for the first time. With the 4 track, I had to hit it from top to bottom. I could not miss. There was no
So wait,
punching in.
so this ADAT era is effectively when it goes from you have to be able to one take your shit to you can like actually come back in at another point, or am I
For the
mistaking
home
it?
studio. for the home studio.
Yeah, we're talking
There
about
was always the studio that you could pay for
yeah.
to go to,
But we're
and we
talking
were
the home
doing that.
studio stuff because that's the more
Yeah,
interesting things. Everybody knows that the
yeah,
fancy studios can do the fancy studio stuff.
yeah,
But y'all were like the inception point of golden era greatness that we idolize and fetishize today everywhere that's not New York City, right? Like that's the shit.
yeah,
Like that's where it's at. So
yeah,
you're describing not just what you're doing, but what everybody that probably anybody I ever listened to was going through some version of as well.
yeah,
That's why it's fucking
yeah.
cool.
And each home lab had a really different sound. Like Cassius Clay Mack was like a master with nothing from before that. Our 4-track joints would knock. So when he got the ADAT, that was it. We stopped paying for the studio that we would go to after recording the 4-track stuff, and we just started doing everything in his crib. But that song in particular was one that he had some partners who also wanted to get more involved in the music game, and one of them was a lawyer by the name of Carlos. Another one was Sean Prez, who went on to start doing promotions for Bad Boy, and he's like the president of promotions of Bad Boy now, right? So Sean and Mac used to always work together to throw parties. There was Sound Plus Rhythm Productions, and I would help Mac carry crates into the parties, and we'd throw parties at Demararas and different spots in the cities. We did a lot of $5 hollers.
Hold on, what's a
And
$5 holla? I mean, it sounds like it's pretty much in the name.
it's more about feeding the bar. You just pay $5 to get in, but that $5 is going to us, to the crew that's providing the sounds. And that was Sound Plus Rhythm Productions. And so they wanted to get into the record game, and so they invested into that one song, and we pressed up the vinyl for Forsaken, and then the flip side was the song Dip Dip, and we put it out there in the world, and it got a lot of really good feedback. Like all the underground stations started picking up on it really quickly. And then we made it on the Five Deadly Venoms of Brooklyn, thanks to PF Cut. So PF Cutton added us to his segment on that mixtape, and that's one of the most like
The five
legendary
deadly.
mixtapes of that era. Five Deadly Venoms of Brooklyn.
PF
It
Cutton
was
was a big DJ in New York City
yeah,
scene, the New York City like
yeah,
hip hop scene, period, which was pretty much the hip hop scene of the nation. Like the
yeah,
DJs that were big in New York City were kind of like big everywhere at the time, essentially, because they were the ones providing the mixtapes everybody was getting. And
yeah,
PF Cutton was definitely one of them.
yeah.
Mm.
And this
He
tape was
also
cutting.
do
Yeah,
work with Smooth the Hustler and Trigger the Gambler.
yeah, I
I might
believe he did. But I mean, I
I
wouldn't be
don't even know
surprised.
who
Like,
those people are.
but Five Deadly Venoms was the cassette right there,
Okay. So basically, you got on that thing?
and that was it. Opened up a lot of venues for shows. Started getting my name out there. Made it a little easier to get a little further up on the open mic list now. Um, and then we followed it up with the Dip Dip remix and this other song called I Heard It, and we did that one with Nervous Records. And that was our first time working with the label. So the same crew took me over to Nervous Records. We worked on that. We did some video work for it. Um, and it was cool because that one then got picked up on Hot 97. And Red Alert was the first person to start playing that Dip Dip remix, and he would play it on his 5 o'clock free ride that he would do, and that was in '97. And so then the buzz started growing more from getting some more burn from that kind of exposure on that level with that song. But we were trying to figure out what the next song was going to be, and I was writing a lot of stuff that was it wasn't progressing in the direction that that we'd have all liked to have seen as a group. um, and then I saw Sound Plus Rhythm investing in someone else, right? And of course, I started feeling a little jealous that they were investing their time in this other artist on the label. Although this dude was dope, because it was me, it was this other guy, Thief in the Night. Thief in the Night was awesome. And then there was this I forget the third guy's name, but he was a sick lyricist. I think his name was Mr. Cruz or Felix Cruz. It might have been Felix Cruz, yeah. But he was up in the Bronx and he was nasty. So they were just trying to diversify, their investments. They didn't say they weren't working with me. I still had access to the studio. They were still feeding me with beats. I was writing, but I got my ego got in the way, and it made me tell them that I was seeking different representation. So then I ended up sitting across the table from what's Eminem's lawyer's name again?
Paul
Um,
Rosenberg.
Paul Rosenberg. I have a meeting with Paul Rosenberg. At the time, he was representing Eminem and Thurston Howe. And he was like, Breeze, I know who you are. What are you looking for? And we started talking. I played him some jams, and he was like, all right, all right. And he was talking about, how he was giving me the precursor and let me hear like some more of Eminem's jams, like off the demo tape when Eminem just had the 6 songs on the demo. And he was telling me how M's about to blow and all this other stuff to set up a follow-up meeting with him. I go back to the other dudes and they're like, let's try to work something out. And so I never followed up with Paul Rosenberg. Probably the biggest of many big mistakes that I probably made along the way. But that one right there.
I mean, I totally can appreciate what you're saying right now. I mean, how many? It's like saying, okay, like I knew what Bitcoin was in 2010. That's a real fact in my life. I knew what Bitcoin was in 2010
Uh-huh.
when a dollar would get you more than one Bitcoin. Okay, a dollar would get you more than. And imagine if I just put like $100 into those Bitcoins,
Yeah.
and then what I, you just everyone
Yeah.
has that moment. That's what
Yeah.
it feels like listening to you tell me that you were listening to Eminem's pre-released material, and Paul Rosenberg's like, my God, fucks with you, and you're like, nah,
Now he didn't say that. I can't say
okay,
that. He
all
he
right.
wasn't he wasn't
I might
like
have been
he wanted
projecting a
he
little
wanted a
bit.
follow up, right? So I appreciated the opportunity to follow up, right? But that's where, you know, depending on how you show up, it depends on how you blow up sometimes, right? But I didn't even follow up. And that's a fuck up because these people will not open up the door for you again,
Right.
especially once the train starts moving. That's it, you've done.
That's a
And I
huge
blew up with
knowledge nugget.
more than one person in that area because oftentimes it was that ego piece. And it's weird because it's like the skill in the art form itself almost pushes and propels that ego to the front because so much of it was driven by that. So much of the appeal of it was that, I'm bad, and when you gotta, you know it was like the explosion of emotion from an oppressed people when you think about the birth of hip hop in and of itself, right? um and so a lot of it is bravado, and it's hard to separate that, and that's what led to that rift that finally separated me from the Sound Plus Rhythm guys. Right before they 2 years later they're doing songs on Biggie's album, right? Had my ego not gotten away, I could have sat in the cut and been positioned for a lot better. Because by the time I got to reaching out to Sean Prez again, he was like, straight up, Breeze, I'm so far from that listening to demo tape shit right now. And it hurt to hear that. But at the same time, I had to respect it because I was the one that stepped off. And so then, it's one meeting after another with different labels. I'm sitting there with the heads of Raucous, and they're same thing. Breeze, we know where you are, but the record game just isn't what it was just a little while ago. Like they're getting ready to, you know, finalize their deals and turn over their, most of their control of their stuff to the deal they're working on with Priority. And they were about to change into a different kind of label at that point. They weren't really picking up anybody off the street anymore. But again, they knew the name. They wished me well. There was respect. Sat down with Steve Rifkin in his office, spit some bars for him. That's right when Alcoholics and Wu Tang were taking off. But there was nothing really there either for that, and that's when before that, or right around that time was when you started seeing the Bad Boy stuff start taking off, and the entire industry started moving towards that kind of that really polished sound, party vibes. It was like the conscious rappers were almost being intentionally barred from being a part of the mainstream. It was like a hard shift that started happening. And so having lost those connects and being in between, the only place left to go for me was the underground scene in New York and the battle scene. And then there was also the indie chitlin circuit throughout the country, where every now and then you get a flown here or there to do a show here and there because you had some vinyl that was spinning out a while ago before that. And so the battle scene was another place to keep your buzz going and keep your buzz alive. And I found some success there because I was really good at timing and dropping punchlines.
I have seen what you're talking about in my YouTube discoveries of timing and punchlines. Somebody called you like your Eminem, and then you came in, and I'm not gonna lie, in that one mime, you came in like a finessed Eminem style with your timing and your punchlines and destroyed him. That was the truth of it. He may have mocked you for it, but you crushed him. And I was like, I don't even need to watch whatever else. That Breeze won that one. I don't know what battle it was. It was just in a slew of shit I was watching. But I was like, yo, that's fair, man. You really had that shit on lock. That's at least from what I saw. Um, that's crazy though, because what you said was kind of big, right? Like something that I don't think people realize is you might be friends with people today. Um, right? And maybe today y'all are working together. And I can think of an example that's not related to me, but just of two people that were like once upon a time doing real well. They were tight, and then 6 7 years later, one of them is like in another sphere of existence, and the other one's not. Maybe like he still kind of thinks they're like the same level of friends. He hits them up. The follow up isn't like it used to be, and it makes me realize that maybe there are some people who might believe that the relationships and connections that exist in your life today are gonna be there 2 3 years from now, and that it's just like an implied thing. And I think the lesson from what we can take from what your story is that sometimes it's not even true. Sometimes when the time comes, even if everybody loves it, it's just that unfortunately the time is no longer what it was, and the people are no longer in the same position to be able to do what they once did, meaning that you now have to go find new networks and new ways to approach life. And this happens to so many of us. So many of us go through moments that are exactly like that. I mean, I'm pretty sure most people do. I don't think most people actually do the right thing the first time. Like, I don't actually think that that's common, like
Yeah.
that's that miracle shit that Hollywood sells. That's that like actor rap, as I think you put it at one point in your career. um that would, like, like, is it bad, is it good, I don't know, but the authenticity is attractive in 2021, so you on a good path in today's market.
Well, that's a good thing. I did glaze over another huge segment of my upbringing when I was working with the Cassius Clay Mac, and that was the first time I was on Hot 97. So even though that was the first time my records were playing on Hot 97 was when the Dip Dip remix came out in late 97. In 95, there was a show called the Mic Check Show on Hot 97, and it was hosted by the Furious Five. And that's when the personal things were happening in my life, and I was about to quit rhyming altogether. And I was telling my man Mark Caraballo up in the Bronx, he lived right there, right near Yankee Stadium, and I was at his crib, and I was like, Mark, I think I'm gonna quit, and he was like, Nah, man, chill, chill, chill. Um, you need to, there's a show, you got to call in, we got to call in, you got to get on. So we call, and they're like, what are the odds you're gonna get on the show, right? And the dude's like, Hot 97, who's calling? I'm like, yo, Breeze, wanted to, see if I could rhyme. And he's like, all right, let's see what's up. And they put me on hold, and then they open up the mic, and I get to spit. And then on the mic check show, the Furious Five would, if you caught a good flow, they would do this thing. They would just chant. Everything for them was a chant, right? They had chants for everything. So if you did a good rhyme, they'd be like, "You did your thing, homie. You did your thing. You did your thing, homie. You did your thing." Or if your rhyme was whack, they'd be like, "That was doo doo. That was doo doo. That." So you did not want to get that second one, right? So I remember having listened to the show before. Like I was nervous, but I gave it all I had, right? I was like, what do I got to lose? They told me to stay on the line. And then Mickey Benson, who was managing the Furious Five at the time, was like, they want you to come down to the studio next week. And so we go down there and we're standing out in front of Hot 97 and we're super on time, but we're like, do we just walk in? And we walk in and they're like, we're not expecting you. You can't come in. And so we start walking out and then we see Melly Mel and all the others come in and then we're like, yo, BREEZ. And they're like, oh, BREEZ from the other week. Come on, come with us. Come with us. And they bring us up into the studio and we're in the studio with the Furious Five. And then they started having me come in every week as like I was like their new school assassin. So anytime like somebody would come on and try to get lyrical on them with the new stuff, like they'd be like, "Oh, BREEZ,
you were the young gunner. You were
I
the
was the
pit
young
bull.
gunner. I was the young
Yep.
gunner there, and I was there to do my thing, and I would be up there in the studio, and they would let me do the rhyme cipher with them at the start of the show every week, and every week Melly Mel would write a new rhyme for the show. This dude was so disciplined with lyricism, but to be in the room in the presence of that greatness. And at first, Flash was there just for like one more show, and then they kind of started going their separate ways with that. But then it was Tony Touch who was DJing for the Furious Five, and Angie Martinez was the engineer on the show. And so I got to spend a lot of time with all of these people early on, and that's what kind of brought me back into the music. And then eventually I started rocking with Freedom Williams, who knew Melly Mel and the Furious Five. And then Freedom invited me to his studio, and he was putting together a rap group a la Wu-Tang called the Black Knights. And they put together a 12-inch vinyl called Who's the Black Man? And I got to drop some bars on that about riding over the Alps like Hannibal, and all this other stuff. Like it was like some uber righteousness, but it was good. From that, a group of us from the Black Knights spun off into the Hypodermic Needles, and that was with the homies from Elm City up in Connecticut, and it was me, Napalm Bomb, and Nondescript for the MCs. Sonata Virtuoso was the beat maker, and we dropped a single called Always. And so that's where the vinyl started to come. And then it was time for me to do my own vinyl, and that's when Cassius Clay Mac hit me with the Forsaken track. So I can't say I was completely out of the way. And dude, when history is this dense and there's that many brushes with greatness, it gets hard to keep it all lined up sometimes. So forgive me for being a little mixed up with it, but it has definitely been an interesting career to say the least.
Very interesting. I was gonna say
Allow me to just say, like, even I can appreciate how fucking ridiculously, I think the entire anybody can appreciate how ridiculous it is. First of all, everybody knows who Angie Martinez is today. So that was like a name drop that's relevant, right? Because she's on YouTubes and shit, like people know who that is, right? That was like really like a significant thing. We all know who the five are, because like, I mean, we all do. It's just, how do you not? It's impossible. You like brought up Grandmaster Flash just all casually, like he was there that one time, and then I'm like, what the fuck? And then you're on the radio busting freestyles. You're like their pit bull, just to
Hot
prove that they
97
got
is a huge
like
name. I was
huge name.
gonna ask. We still didn't get to Blaze Battle on HBO, right?
Nah.
Yeah.
Not even. No, but this is just
which is like from a super hip hop head New York kid, all the way. It was, to me, dumb. Like, that's like,
Somebody said Idea there. You know Idea?
Yeah.
You bet. Like you,
We knew each other. Yes, I can't say that he was a friend, but we knew
no,
of
because
each other for
my
sure.
guy Ismail, who's been watching this, fucking loves Idea. So whatever you can say about Idea would be a wonderful thing.
He's good people's, but it was never more than just a pound or what's up. Um, and I've heard good things that I can say for sure, you know. But the Midwest battle scene was coming up very differently than the New York one at the time, and it was another interesting scene, just like the New England scene was starting to develop also around that time in the late '90s, and they were starting the battle scene also. So you got Scribble Jam like blowing up for the Midwest and some of the southern states where underground hip hop was starting to bubble, and then up north it was the Super Bowl battles that would happen up at the Middle East, and a lot of those dudes like Sage Francis, who eventually then migrated over to
Oh
the
my,
Scribble Jam circuit and started doing damage down there. I met Sage Francis in the streets of New York in those late 90 days. Like he was battling some like ducks up on in the West Village, and there was like more of them than him. So then, of course, you know, I stepped in and I was like, "Yo, let's go." And you know, it was us battling these other dudes, and then after that, he came with us. I think Lifelong was there too to BBQs or some. We had some lunch or some restaurant or something like that. We were just building on MC and stuff like that. But he was like, he was just raw. Like he was like so raw MC, like just coming down from up north, like just in the streets battling dudes like that. Like I said, he could wear the title. He could say I'm an MC, and he's got
like Sage
somebody,
Francis.
yeah, who can
Yo,
vouch for
dude,
that.
when I
Even though
first
I
saw
paid for his
Sage
dinner that night, he
Francis,
never paid me back.
that's amazing, my guy. Sage Francis is huge for me, at least. I mean, look at me, my guy. I fucking saw Sage Francis for the first time. I like, cause yo, it was random as fuck. I discovered him by like
Yeah,
some guy told me about Escape Artist was the track in like 2012 or 13 or something. And I had never
yeah.
heard anybody speed up on a hook like that. I was like, wait, you can go fast on the hook? Like you don't have to slow down the hook, and it blew my fucking mind. I got into that guy makes music for people like me. If there was ever a guy who makes music for people like me, it's fucking Sage Francis. That Life album is one of my favorite projects of all time, but nobody knows what the fuck it means, so I never even bring it up.
Dude. He was one of those dudes we used to rock with all the time up in Boston scene when we were started going up there and rocking with him and Acrobatic, Mr. Lift, 7L and Esoteric,
Fuck me,
Wretch,
eh?
like you know, those scenes were so intertwined, and there was that battle scene up there, there was the battle scene in New York, and then Blaze was the first magazine to endorse a battle. And the first battle was at Tramps. And Tramps was a really awesome venue with one of the best sound systems, also super clean and crisp. And I remember the first Blaze battle happened, and Pre the Honey Dark won it, and no, and Pre totally took it, deserved it 100%. I was just mad I wasn't in it, so I remember walking around backstage for that first one, like, "Yo, why am I not in this battle? I should be. I'll rip anybody." And it was that bravado, right? That and I'm shouting this out loud the way we used to, because Stronghold, when we started forming as a crew, like we used to walk through Times Square screaming, "Who want a battle?" Like
Hold on
calling
though.
people
Hold
out of the
on.
crowds.
You you
Yeah,
you 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 you
All right,
one
Flacco, do
at a
your
time,
thing.
right? The strongholds.
I
You're
know,
gonna have
I
to
know, I
explain
know, I
the.
know,
It,
I know.
you even
Yeah,
breeze. You even breeze past the Blaze battles.
Listen, he's just
That
ever flowing. That's what we
this is
need,
a huge
hero.
thing. That like that was the first
yeah,
real honest commercialization of battle rap to the
yes,
world,
yes,
presentation of hip
yes.
hop battle rap to the world, those Blaze
Oh,
battles.
absolutely,
And then
absolutely.
after that came the fight clubs on MTV
Yep, yep,
and the Smack DVDs,
yep,
but first those Blaze battles came
yep.
Yo, that's
on
And
interesting because
HBO, on
yo, you gotta understand.
HBO,
I've
on
talked to a lot of
HBO, and they had RZA and Capadonna, who were signed artists at the time on a major record label, participating with the guys like BREEZ and like Pumpkinhead. I guess idea would be another name that, like, you know,
Yep.
like
Your idea
people
is pretty cool. Like, I mean, maybe you don't think he's pretty. I don't know how much you listen to Idea Flacco. From what I've seen of your Facebook posts, I'm going to assume not a lot. It's all right. For me, I listen to Idea. I like Ismail is like gets us to he gets to tell us what albums to review here and there. So he got us to do his first one, the first Idea and Abilities project. And yo, that guy read some shit, man. And he made
Mm-hmm.
songs that were so abstract and out there that they could be taken to philosophy courses in university. And for real, you could build an entire course around that first album, Firstborn. Ismail posted it there. And like, that's how, like, yo, because we went through that shit. And I'm like, yo, there is some serious, like, you wrote a song about being a fish and shit that questions humanity and whatnot. I'm like, that's like a level of like songwriting that I can see how it's not appealing to the mass majority of people. But if you a thinker, that shit's gold when you want to go thinking mode.
Listen, man, like he could wear the MC title also, because he was definitely out there where he was at, but then I know he was always ready to go at a moment's notice, right? And it's unfortunate that he passed as soon and as early as he did, right? But he could wear the title for sure. But yeah, that was the Blaze battle was that, right? Blaze was a magazine. It was a spin-off of Vibe magazine. Vibe magazine is, if you don't know, it's one of the biggest print magazines for music culture and just black culture in general, but definitely with a heavy slant towards the music industry, um, and then entertainment overall. So then they started Blaze magazine so they could focus on hip hop. They wanted something to contend with the Source magazine. The Source was definitely ripe for the picking at the time. That's back when they was just starting to get into that little Eminem beef was just pre-brewing, and whatever troubles they were getting into with the publisher. So Blaze came and hit the scene hard with some really dope content, some really like great cover stories, and then they did the Blaze battle. And the first battle was, and then the person who won the battle gets the back cover of the magazine. And so that's like the first time, if you're an up and coming MC, you got a full page on a magazine. Like if you were doing it indie back then, you were paying about 1,500 to get a full page ad. Like I remember, like we were paying money to get an ad in some of these
You
spots,
hear
and
what he
just
just
for a quarter
said?
page, like we was paying a lot of money for that. It's not like
Oh
internet
my
ads or
gosh.
running ad campaigns through IG or something like that. It was bread. You were paying bread to get your stuff
Well,
out
to
there.
be fair, if you want to do social media marketing right, it isn't $30 ad campaigns. It's
Mm-hmm.
$1,500 ad campaigns,
Yes.
right? Like if you're doing
Yes.
it correctly. So
Mm-hmm.
I love that you're saying that too, because it does reinforce the idea that again, not a lot of this game was ever free for anybody. And it was the
Mm-hmm.
people who were able to pull that off. Like for me, I read the Gucci Mane book. And like one of the more profound things to me is he's describing how early on in his career, he runs into Killer Mike and T.I. or T-Pain or something like that. And they drop prices. It was like 6,500 he pays for these features. And he's like, this is a great investment. And I'm
Yeah.
like, yo, everybody seems to be willing to put up money to move ahead in their career for, listen, you're still doing it today. To me, success is longevity. If you're able to drop like what, 2 or 3 projects, you make that whole cartoon album thing where you're drawing all this cool, colorful, amazing comic book stuff. Like you're doing some incredible things with your life. And you're still doing it. That is success. So the people who put up money back in the day and put that investment into themselves are the people who today are, sustainably able to do it. To me, that's the people that I have to learn from so that when I'm older, I'm able to still create art that matters and sounds fucking whatever. And like, like it has to be like that. So, to me, it's cool that you're saying that, we were willing to put up that $1,500. We were able to get in that magazine. We were able to be a part of history that you can't be a part of. Nah, 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 nah.
yeah.
And it's amazing that you can do that.
And by the way, like I want to like also give flowers. Like that's you guys, that whole that Blaze thing for like my generation, my era, like I looked at it like this is where I want to get to. This is what I need to strive to. All everybody who was there, that was the goal. That was what I'm looking at as like, oh wow, there's a lane here. There's something that I can figure out and try to get to, and that's flowers for being a part of that. being a part of pushing that boundary. If you didn't strive for that, I wouldn't have seen that I could strive for that, right?
My man, I appreciate you for that, and I definitely appreciate the acknowledgement there, and uh, that's something that for with the Blaze battle, right? That was the jump off. That was the catalyst. That was the set off. That is why battle culture got to where it is as fast as it did now, and we might not be where it was now if not for that. And so when I jumped into that second Blaze battle in '98, in November, it was a whole different group of contenders. I mean, there was some really, really dope MCs in that lineup. My first round was against Dice Raw from Philly. Proof was in that battle right there. The Lonnie B from the Super Friends. And so the battle with me and Pumpkinhead was the one though where they were like, "Oh, there's something here," because that was the first time they asked for a third round because they did the sound meter, and it might have I wish I would have known who it went to after the second verse, but it was so close after me and PH's second round that the crowd was screaming one more round, and they saw that thirst in the eyes of the crowd, and they were like ching ching. And so even though that wasn't the winning round from the battle, that was the round that they put on these promotional cassettes that they started printing up, these little styrofoam cassettes, VHS tapes. And those VHS tapes were then heavily circulated at all of the seminars after that. And that's where a lot of people got to know me, was from that VHS tape. That VHS tape was the catalyst that got them onto HBO for their HBO battle, which Idea and Shells were in the last round on. But I didn't get into
Wow.
that battle because, again, it was part ego, but also I felt like I was deserving. I was up in Blaze like, yo, how can I help administrate? How can I help get behind the scenes? I want a piece of this. I want to help be a part of this. And that's when they were like, um, yeah, well, we're not going to give you anything to get involved in it if you want to get involved in it. And I'm like, but look at what I've already done with this so far. And they were not trying to hear anything about a partnership. And so I had nothing to do with the HBO battle. But then when they were planning the second HBO battle, they had me in the wings ready to battle the champion of that one. And that's when E-Dub won. Or was that the first one that E-Dub won? Whichever one E-Dub won, I was waiting in the wings because they wanted the last Blaze champion to battle the new one. And so I still have the Blaze Grand Champion jacket because me and E-Dub never got to mix it up because something happened in the venue, had to shut everything down. So they gave me the jacket signed by Russell Simmons, and I had the Grand Championship for Blaze. And then they moved on to other things. Um, but
It's huge.
from there, then other companies started picking up on what they weren't able to capitalize on with failing to launch that platform, because also Blaze was on the precipice of closing out altogether. So soon afterwards, Blaze magazine was gone.
Okay.
Um, Viacom wanted to dip their toes into it, and that's where I'm sure Zoo might have shared a little bit of this story also, where one of my boys who was in my original rap group home, my man Fu Live, he worked at Viacom, and he was like, "Yo, they're trying to do something with MC battles. I know you're still on the scene. Can you come through with some heads, maybe show some of the producers what you guys can do?" And I put out a call, and I brought about 10, 15 MCs down to Viacom studio on Broadway. And we went up to the little boardroom, and they heard a bunch of us rap. And, they picked Zoo, they picked Penn, and who was the third person? I think Penn had a homie, Mistress. They picked Mistress also. And they wanted to space them out and give them opportunities to rhyme also. And they were going to add it to the DFX program, and that would be the platform they would launch this thing. And it was like a really small segment of the program, but that's where they started with the MC battle. But it was just spit one verse, no back and forth at the time.
Right.
And then at a certain point, as these companies will do. It was like, okay, Zoo's winning again. Of course, Zoo's winning again, right? You open up a door for a real MC, like you're not going to bring anything up that's going to knock that out, right? So they were like, all right, we need to do something because Zoo's winning again. And then they called me in, but they weren't interested at first, right? But they were like, okay, let's get an MC and MC. And I would never go at Zoo ever, right? And I would not want to. And I just got too much love for the brother to do anything like that. So we just spit verses for premiere. We just freestyled, and we build the way we do, right? And then Primo gave it to me that night.
Was
And
that the
after
one
that,
where you in your verse compliment Big Zoo right before Big Zoo comes out and does his crazy entrance?
heck yeah,
Because I saw that on YouTube earlier today. Because Big Zoo brought that up and told us about that on my interview with Big Zoo.
Yeah, I
And
was
so
gonna say, like,
we actually watched that video
what
today. Even my
this
guy
is.
is like, we just watched that. It's like so it's really cool to hear you talk about that, but be able to like actually picture it. And shout out Big Zoo. That's some charisma, my guy.
and the other thing too, Flex had been the judge because he was the DJ previously, right? And Flex really connected with Zoo, and I guess on some level with the whole aspect of the MC battle being a part of that show, right? And I think he was very upset that he wasn't a part of the decision. And so
Mm.
Flex and I had a really cold relationship on that show the entire time. There was barely any interaction, and he never showed me love on camera. On camera, he was always trying to, tell me to calm down and calling me gas, and then that just made me get more cocky and start talking more shit, right? So definitely, again, another political misstep of so many throughout the career, but I think I ended up all right. So fuck it. Um, but you know so then it started confounding them as I continued to win because that's not MTV's thing. They want new flavor, chew it, spit it out. New flavor, chew it, spit it out. And that's the machine that they were building as they contributed to this culture of limited attention spans that we currently have right now, right? So they started building that foundation back then. So then they were like, okay, fuck it. If we can't take them out with this one verse thing, let's make it head to head. And so then they changed the format to head to head. And I was still winning. And they were like, shit, okay, let's not tell him who he's battling this week, and he'll find out at the show because maybe that prep time is too much. And it was. You're gonna give an MC 8 hours, and I know who I'm gonna be facing off against later. A real MC, like I'm coming prepared. Even if I'm not writing it down, bars are forming throughout the day. So from rehearsal until the fucking show goes live, I got that 2 lines and I'm going to fit within that 30 seconds that are going to knock you out. And so that last one with the El Gant, it was oh, the dude can't make it over here for the sound check. We don't know what's up. And me, like, I'm in there with the flu, but I'm like, I'm gonna try to do what I can do and try to get through it. And I essentially was not delivering. And lyrically, in the verse, I gave him the round because I did not come through with it. And that's the kind of MC I am. And
Wow.
still ended up with 49% of the vote. So I think back sometimes like I could have ended undefeated because that was going to be my last battle anyway. Um, so then he goes on a little run afterwards and on a little tear. And then when they figured out, like, damn, we give an MC the reins and they don't let go, this isn't working for us. And then they eliminated it from the show during his run.
It's
A little
crazy.
while later, the
So hold
same
on. What you're
production
saying
team.
is,
Yeah.
so what you're saying is MTV gave people or whoever the choice, right? Like I don't know who was the one that was choosing the winner.
First, the DJ was choosing, then they opened it up and did an online voting system. Um,
So the
and
people
then
were
they changed it to
picking,
a head-to-head and online voting system.
and with all of that, effectively democracy went against MTV's wishes. So they nixed the situation rather than listening to what the people wanted because it didn't fit into what they were hoping to do with shit.
Yes, what they were hoping, but they did learn from it. And that same team that oversaw the battles on DFX set up shop at 106 in Park.
Mm. I have a quick question. Can I pause real quick and go run to the washroom, and I'll be back in 2 minutes?
Absolutely.
Awesome. Flacco usually holds it down and talks at this
Yeah,
point.
nah, I got you. Absolutely. Nah, but because this is very important because Breeze, like I tell people a lot, like when it comes to like battle rap, like there's like a pride that I feel that we have that is rightfully earned because like it's not even a pride that comes from winning these battles or having the gall to get into these battles, right? But like literally we finally created, like, after all that work that you guys put in, what Penn, Pumpkinhead, Sarah, me, what Direct and Grind Time, what we all set into effect essentially is a lane. We created a lane where there was no lane for us. There was
Nope.
no lane. There was no love. There was no nothing. The music industry shunned us. Nobody wanted a part of us. We were the unknowns, the unloved, the cast asides. And we created a lane for ourselves and an industry for ourselves that is now feeding people. And now you got young kids who are literally earning like essentially like a livable wage off of just battle rapping regularly, and like I'm happy for them because this is all what we, right? Like hip hop is born to spread love, spread knowledge, and battling was always a part of this. Like you're bringing this whole like pieces of knowledge from that era to it. But like we know, like, look, when DJs first was DJing, what was they doing? Battling each other. When b-boys started dancing, what b-boys start doing? Battling each other. MCs getting on the mic, they battling each other. If you doing graph, what you doing? You buffing somebody and you battling with your tags. This culture revolves around proving your metal and testing it against each other. And it's something that is a core part of the culture. So for years later, there to be a part of it that like also in the MC aspect becomes an industry within itself, like the DMC championships, which are a great, it's its own thing, like I want for eventually for us to maybe be able to have the privilege of having the Q-Berts and those guys that like, that this is all really like important stuff that's like people aren't really informed of it, and maybe the people that know of it, they're already in the know. And we need to do a better job of bridging this gap and like educating it for everyone to be able to have all of it, not just the popular people, not just the cool names to say, the guys like you, Zoo, Poison Pen, everybody, Nunzio, everybody that helped found EO Dub. All these things are very pivotal. Poison Pen, we got to get to Stronghold if we can before you leave. Like this is all like just stuff that really touched a whole generation. And then guys like me got to then show the next generation. And then those guys got to show the next generation. And now you have the next generation of guys coming up showing the next generation of kids that are just watching them how to do it.
Absolutely. The stronghold was the what the where I was able to say I should be in this battle for the blaze, right? Like being a part of that crew and where that came from. And that started with the my first foray into battles that I started getting known for was in 88 hip hop. 88 hip hop was part of Pseudo Online. Pseudo Online was part of the big first internet bubble that burst and whatnot, where you really couldn't enjoy it unless you experienced a decent bandwidth at the time, and very few people did. But for those few people who did, it was Pseudo Online Networks, and they had their own production studio down in Soho, and they had all these investors, and it was just a crazy scene, this big warehouse space. And you'd walk in there, and there was a little studio and then this big warehouse loft down on Broadway in Houston in the village. And in the studio, they'd have the interview show called 88 Hip Hop. It was every Wednesday night, and that was the new scene. It didn't cost anything to go up and hang out in the lounge outside. And in that lounge outside were ciphers every week. And this was back in like 97, I think, 97, 98. And so in those ciphers would be everyone. And I mean, everyone who was anyone who was everyone was in those ciphers. And that's where I met Poison Pen. That's where I met Lifelong. That's where I met C Rays. That's where I met Stealth Index, who hosted the battle segment on the show and who brought me into the show to battle C Ray's Walls on 88 Hip Hop. And that was an off the head back and forth battle. Like they were trying to be as true hip hop as possible. They would throw on a beat, they would count bars, and you would have to go back and forth. And so you could not go in there with writtens. You had to come off the top. And so I was able to win that round and then stay on for a good stretch afterwards. I did not hold Poison Pen's record for the amount of wins he had. I think Penn had like 12 wins on 88 Hip Hop. He beat all sorts of people while he was on there. Like he's the record holder for it for sure. But I still had a really good run before I got taken out near the end. But it was good times. It was definitely good times. But 88 Hip Hop's what gave me the cred to go into Blaze. Like, why am I not in this? Because everybody on the scene knew how I got down from those 88 Hip Hop battles.
Like my word, man. You know, like I don't know how much time you actually have left. So regardless of how much time you have left, it doesn't change what I'm about to say. We've barely like scratched the surface of anything. I barely think we've broken into the 2000s at this point. All right. And you've
we're
already
just starting because then we got to talk about the EO Dub era, and you know
so yeah, Big Zoo
the
saying we need a Breeze part 2, which
yeah,
absolutely is
because
something
Yeah,
I'm
we could.
definitely starting to get a little
absolutely.
winded at this point. I can only imagine how
Honestly,
much
my
that you've
guy,
gone through.
I live for this, man. This is, I mean, I take it to an excessive level, so you don't. I understand that it's not like everyone's cup of tea, but man, going 4 hours, no biggie for me. I understand it's not everyone's cup of tea, but yo, you have blessed us so much with your life stories. Because yo, for me, it's about the knowledge nuggets, right? Um, is there footage of all of this period of your life? We're getting a comment from Ampersand who's tripping out, going, "You're preaching the real stuff. You're amazing." We're getting a lot of love for you, man, in the comment from people who are like,
That's
"Wow, this
peace.
is truly fucking incredible." Like, I know sometimes when I talk to y'all, you look at your life like how you look at your life, but I do not see it at all the way that you see it. You casually name dropped so much shit that to you is insignificant, that is to me Wikipedia fucking amazing, that like you don't understand the perception. We're not even like, we listened to your first project or whatever that I found in 2002 or whatever, right? We haven't even got to that. And there's so many albums that came out. Okay. You've
Yeah,
done
you know
so
what?
many
I want to
incredible things,
echo.
man.
I want to echo what Holden is saying, because you know what? Like, even it again, he's over there, right? But I'm right here, you know. And I was meeting, you know, like I had told you in the DMs on Instagram, like because I was around. I was Jean Grey and Sarah Connor, you know, lyrics like little homie. I was their little
Yes,
homie, you know? And
yes.
so I got to be around all you guys. And so I saw this and I'm just like, this is, but you guys got to achieve things. Bro, you got to go on Hot 97. That's the dream when you're from New
I know.
York and you rap.
I know, man.
That's the dream, is to get
I know.
on to Hot 97, to get to
Man,
be
hold
in
on. Like,
MTV,
it's not
to
just a dream
be a
from New
part of,
York.
you know, all these things are things that is what showed me, you know, like, this is what you do. This is the way that you make your journey through this, and you earn your stripes. You maybe get to have the opportunity one day to have a chance to entertain more than the people that that around your way. And
Yeah.
without you guys doing that, like there's no. So I'm looking
Yo,
also
but
at like, yo,
I
this
just need
is
to I
incredibly
just need to like
fascinating. Like
add on to that a little bit. It doesn't end there too, because if y'all want to understand, he had dropped a project in late 2020. I don't remember exactly when. There's this track on there. My wife caught me taking a selfie. And it goes on this like real thing where, listen, I'm not like there, but I'm still old enough where like I got a selfie stick recently, and it's fucking weird to admit that I own a selfie stick. Okay. And just but you swagged it out, and you went in this like deep direction with it where you're like, yeah, I'm taking a selfie. Okay. It's not really like for what you think it is. It's to do this with it. And like, you know what the truth is about the track is, probably most of us have had that conversation with ourselves where we got caught taking that selfie, and like, it's like you have to admit to yourself a little bit you are that guy and how goofy the situation is. Okay. That's on your latest project. And they left me with this huge feeling of, yo, man, the future's going to be all right. Okay. Like everybody's going through this shit. So for me, it's like, it doesn't really just end with all of your past accomplishments. You made a comic book, fucking music video, EP album thing. You're like built for the future, dude.
But there's a key difference now than before, and that's going to be a big part of part two of the conversation, because there's the EOW stuff, there's the NBC stuff, there's there's a big chunk of homelessness and denial, and then the well just running completely dry as far as like resources and outlets, right? Like there's that piece of it, and then there's now where it's the after going through what I'd gone through in that time frame, it's the rebuilding of a different type of stability, just stepping back from the scene and then returning to the scene at this point after having stopped to take care of business, because that's one thing that I think happened to a lot of my peers, is that we got so entrenched and so focused, and we leaned on so many people for so many favors, and that one more this, or this one here is going to be it, like it's going to do it for me. And it happened for so few, that after calling in all those favors or borrowing all those borrows, like it left a lot of people in pretty dire straits. So there's a lot of brothers out there, currently in the process of rebuilding from the investment of that time, and oftentimes resources and money. But I definitely, could have been a lot wiser about that earlier on, and have continued with some consistency, rather than having had to been forced to take that break. But at this point in time, I came back because of the release that I had originally found from it. And it's very different to be doing it comfortably when you don't have to, as opposed to trying to do it to get your next meal. And that's where
So
the 2000s started getting really tight, when it was rapping to eat.
yeah, I can't wait to hear the rest of it for real. But I gotta say that listening to you talk, hearing your wisdom, I can think of like 30 things you could do on the internet that would make serious bank. You're fucking interesting. You're so good at this. Like you're teaching us like we in class, but we want to come back for more. That's a gift, man. That's all I gotta say about that. That is a gift. But I get the feeling that this is a good time to like, wrap it up. And so we did have one question that was asked far before this project, before the interview thing, when we were listening to that EP that had that track with the cell phone selfie thing. Who produced it? We couldn't figure it out. We wanted to know who was
That
the
was
producer.
a DJ Static remix, and that's another brother that we got to talk about, starting off the 2000s with. That's going to bring us to Boston also. But DJ Static, one of the best that ever did it. Immortal Techniques DJ on the road, rocking with Penn and all of us for like
Mm,
decades now. That's a remix from a track that I had done for DJ Black Panther, who passed away not too long ago. So he was the one who did the original version of the song, and then this remix was done by DJ Static.
that's really cool. Oh, but Old Man Fall is the Old Man Fall is
Yeah,
what he wanted to
yeah.
know. I was wrong. Sorry.
No worries. It was part of
He
the
was
Old Man series. That was my lead up to 50, and I wanted to somehow all these projects got finished around the same time last year, and I was able to release 50 songs on the way to turning 50 back in December. And Old Man Fall was the fourth EP that I released of that, and then the other two were collabos with Big Deep, which were part of the Deep BREEZ project. But there was Old Man Winter, Volume One, Volume Two,
mm,
and then Old Man Spring, and then Old Man Fall. Old Man
yes,
Summer would have sounded weird, so I didn't do it.
fair. But do you know? Was it different producers for the tracks of these, or like was it
Yeah,
just him?
Volume One was DJ Static produced all the tracks. Volume Two, Fifth Seal produced all the tracks. The third one, Old Man Spring, was by my man Chrome. He did all those tracks, and then for Old Man Fall, it was a mix, and that was like different producers that I've worked with throughout the years. Like, but all of these are relationships that I cherish, and I really appreciate.
Right,
So I don't just do songs with people because they have a name.
right, right,
It's
right.
it's oftentimes at this point in time where it's all about the relationships.
Even what you just said is kind of what the kids are doing. So you just dropped how 17-year-olds and 20-year-olds are playing the music game right now. So it's actually really cool that like you're playing the game the way the youth are. That's like really inspiring, isn't it?
Yeah, man.
Um. So
I got
yo,
hope for
thank you.
this wave. This wave's looking good. This wave is looking really good.
I agree entirely. Yo, thank you for real for being here. It is sincerely our pleasure to learn with you. You gave us a lot of your time, which is always a gift. That's how I see it. You taught us a lot of things. We got to learn your history a little bit, a good foundation for when we get into the next parts of your journey.
Yeah, man.
And with that, I just gotta say, like, it's so cool. Like that's the best way I can put it. This was a very cool one for me. I feel like your energy is really amazing, and you're just so sincere with it that like it's delightful to talk to you. That's honestly how I feel with it. Yeah, I don't know if you have any last words, Flacco. If you have any last words.
I just want to say thank you again, for real. Much appreciated. Thank you for everything you did. Thank you for everything you continue to do, right? Because that's the path that we all follow behind. Like I'm the next gen, so it's just like I look at it like, yo, this is me, like because I'm not gonna stop like making music ever, like that's not.
Yeah,
It's just if when you do this is how it is for us, and it's just like a
Yeah,
forever
yeah, man.
thing. And it's just like, so thank you very much, and thank you for coming on. And yeah, please, like, let's have you back on for a part two if we can.
I'll
yeah.
be more than happy to come back through, man. Like I said, that I this was very therapeutic for me as well. It helps to reflect, and this was a great time of reflection. I appreciate y'all for having the curiosity and for digging this deep, because I am an acquired taste for most. And although I'm connected in so many interesting ways to so many different personalities, like it's definitely one of those stories you got to dig to find. So I appreciate y'all being curious enough to get to
That's
this part
Flacco.
and see
Flacco is
what's up.
straight up the. I am curious just to hear your story, but we got to give Flacco his flowers here. He was like, "Nah, you got to do it." And then with Big Zoo also made you sound super interesting, and I'm like, I don't know who Breeze Everflowing is, and they're like,
I know.
"Well, we can
Yeah, nah, I
rectify
know.
this situation."
Yeah, poison pen, and that's just been because my thing is just not. Let's choose do everything natural, right? And Holden is like a great interviewer, and he also is. He wants to know. He wants this knowledge, and it's just like, to me, it's like, let's just keep on connecting dots, right? So like if we're
Yeah,
interviewing Zoo and we're interviewing Penn, and they both mention Breeze, it's just like, well,
yeah,
the logical step to me is like we should have Breeze on so that Breeze
Yeah,
can
yeah.
talk about,
cause yeah,
and because
Well,
it fills out the picture,
but it's
because
also like,
everybody's looking from each of our perspectives, right? So it's
yeah,
a
and
different uh uh uh, portrait that we paint, but it's all a part of like the bigger
yes,
canvas that we're all
what's really
painting together. in the culture, you know? And it's just one big old graffiti wall. It's one big old, you know, the Harlem picture, you know, like of like the jazz renaissance era. But like, remember when they did it again? The double XL, you know, it's just that. And each of us gets to like look at, you know, what we put up there, but when we put our stories together, it makes the picture a little bit more clearer to see.
Yeah, and on top of that, and just to kind of shift it to the audience watching, because we always have to thank the audience who's watching this live on various platforms. Yo, at least on my chat, there are people coming back like week over week. So they watched Poison Pen mention your name, and they actually watched Big Zoo mention your name. So in a sense, like you're giving people who really don't know any of this a real window. And I can't pretend like it's a crazy number of people, but I'm the kind of person that's like, yo, one person's an amazing number of people in a sincere way. But the fact that there are people who are able to stack this knowledge along with us, and everywhere it's streaming, a couple more people are going to collect over time. It's like you're helping us achieve this bigger goal of showing the world what really happened. And that's how I look at it.
Also over here, because I always do the watch party on my Facebook, and like people are in and out the whole time, you know, like the homies are all like very like complimentary of like everything, like, and just, oh, I remember that, and you know, so
there's like even people watching. Somebody shared it on my Facebook, said solid interview, tagged me with it, and that's not like really me as much as it's you being quite interesting, sharing real knowledge. I can only work with what's available in front of me, my guy. That's the truth of the situation. But thank you all for watching on all the various platforms you are watching, because without all you, I mean, like, it's fun, but I can tell you when nobody's watching, it's not as fun. So it's much more fun because y'all are watching and showing us that you're also interested, making us feel like this is interesting and letting us go extra hard with it, and it makes it a beautiful experience. So without y'all being here, I don't know, it wouldn't be as dope. That's all I can say. So thank y'all now watching it. Thank y'all watching it in the future. Make sure that you hit up the end of the week, EOWTV on all the different platforms, and follow, subscribe. If you're watching me, you know, same kind of shit, follow, subscribe, all that good stuff. If it's in the future, same kind of thing. Make sure that you show love to the people that are you know, doing all this. Also, make sure that you follow BREEZ EVAHFLOWIN. At least in all the stuff we put out, we're going to make sure that your links in description are all down there, all the Instagram and all the good stuffs that we could find about you, the YouTubes, because yo, it's important to go follow it. Like, let's get BREEZ EVAHFLOWIN to like 10,000 fucking subscriber type shit. Let's elevate these people. That's within our power, people of the internet and the geeky sides. We can do that. Maybe not
be the
today.
change you want to see in the world is what we always, you know, like be the change and support. It don't cost nothing, right? To hit the subscribe and to hit it, watch when you watch, to hit the like button on the video, leave a comment. That doesn't cost you anything, and all that it does is help the traffic for your videos and what you're doing. And
if you like one of those people that's all like, yo, real hip hop don't exist in 2020 bullshit, BREEZ EVAHFLOWIN drop projects. That's what I'm trying to say. Everybody of every sound's dropping projects of every era. Just let's get the love out. Let's stop with the hate and get the love out. You know what I'm saying? See, now I'm saying that shit all the time. You know what I'm saying? It's fucking like I just absorbed it from y'all.
We've infected you. We got you. By the way, BREEZ didn't say "now I'm saying" like at all.
Nah, because he's like top tier with this shit.
Yeah, no,
he get it.
My man definitely is not like a beholden to the New York. Like, I don't know what happened to me. I used to be so eloquent. I don't know what happened in the last few years.
It's amazing though. But thank you for being here again. So, I mean, I feel like we can get to the part where I guess we can say, you know, live long, prosper, everybody. If you have any super final words, this would be the greatest time to put them. Fucking love it. That's perfect. All right. So I guess with that on my end, I just started my raid and we can work towards ending the stream. Thank you, everybody out there and on the Zoom and on the places and all the good shits in the world.